Baby hair with a woman's eyes, I can feel you watching in the night. When I feel cold, you warm me. And when I feel I can't go on, you come and hold me. It's you and me forever. Sarah Silverman. Do, 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 do. Welcome to Armchair Expert.
That was nice.
Never sang in an intro, but felt appropriate.
Yeah, you really took it on.
You really tackled that one. Sarah Silverman, what a get for us.
Oh, my gosh. I feel so honored.
Oh, coming out swinging at 19. Going to be hard to top. All downhill from here.
Just saying.
Well, you know Sarah Silverman, for Pete's sakes. If you don't know Sarah Silverman, then you need to throw your mobile device out the window of your car.
Or just do some Googling, get to know her.
Well, that's right. Pull over, get your phone out of the ditch, and YouTube Sarah Silverman. But look, we are super fans of Sarah.
Super.
She's incredible. She's so funny. She's so smart. She has the biggest heart. And she's easy on the eyes, too.
Yeah, you like her.
I like her.
You like her.
And I like her.
And I like her, too.
So, without further ado, please enjoy Sarah Silverman.
He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert.
Are we recording, Monica?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh,
yeah.
Soft start.
do you
soft
want-
open.
Do you want to wear these? I enjoy it.
No, I like it. I like.
Me too.
Oh, because then I know I don't have to project.
That's right. I don't even like, I guess I'm so used to going to a radio station, right? And sitting behind like a desk, and then there's the microphone and then the headphones. Even if I go on Stern, I feel very physically uncomfortable. Like I feel so exposed just sitting on a couch, and the fact that it's a headset.
Yeah, the headset, the like Janet Jackson thing they have now.
Yeah, does that throw you out of your comfort zone at all?
No, I get used to it.
You
but,
do.
You know,
You
yeah.
have ice
when
in your
you first walk
veins.
in. Do you think?
Right? Yeah, I do. In fact, that would be something I would get to later. But yeah, I think you have ice in your veins. You have such a specific.
It breaks my heart.
No,
that's a very.
Are you kidding?
Well, I'll tell you this.
As a performer, not as a human.
I would rather. I don't believe in developing a thick skin. I'd rather just have a little more perspective on where things are coming from and understand them more.
Oh, that's a good way.
Ideally.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Because I want to feel things, you know.
Yeah.
But it is interesting because you're right. Like, in order to be effective, there has to be a distance. You know, like in comedy, if you want to talk about something you're very passionate about, you have to have some kind of wall or distance, just like an emergency worker, someone who works in an emergency room is going to be more effective if they can separate what's going on, because otherwise they're going, oh my God, she's bleeding.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yes, there's.
You know, and you have to be able to have a kind of distance, just like social workers and stuff. You know, there's you get into it because you're compassionate.
Army medics.
And in order to be effective, you have to be able to be slightly less compassionate.
Yeah, well, just objective, and being objective is almost antithetical to being emotional. And this guy Paul Bloom wrote a couple of different books about empathy, and he said, you know, we think of empathy as just this blanket positive thing, like a euphemism for any good-natured things. But he said, in point of fact, that empathy's not useful, and he gives that example. If your surgeon is imagining being in your shoes while operating on you, very ineffective. He wouldn't be able to cut into you, or she wouldn't be able to cut into you. So, or if you were walking along the beach and you saw someone drowning, you don't...
Drowning?
Yeah, I know, I say it wrong. That'll be one of many words I say wrong throughout the next little bit. But he said, you know... You don't need empathy to act and to do good. And in fact, if you saw someone drowning, the worst thing you could do is to put yourself in their shoes, because it would make you hysterical.
Right.
But the ice in the veins comment is simply, you have a type of comedy which has so much quiet in it, which I find to be the most scary thing you could do in stand-up. There's a few people that, really do it, and you're certainly one of them.
Oh, interesting.
You're aware of that, obviously,
the
right?
quiet moments. I learned that from Gary Shandling.
Oh, really?
I remember him telling me that sometimes what you aren't saying is just as much a part of it as what you are saying. And, of course, when you start doing stand-up, if you don't have the crowd, you'll over-talk, you'll talk louder, you'll talk faster, and that's desperation. It's not attractive.
I'm still in that phase of my comedy.
Yes, so you have to be willing to, have those moments.
Yeah, I find it to be very brave, and in fact, we both listen to Stern a lot. And
Yes.
in the Seinfeld interviews, I love on there. When he says the kind of people he admires the comics that can kind of just sit in those beats and be patient and not panic and let all that happen. And that, to me, is still the most mind-blowing kind of confidence you can have on stage.
Well, also, it's very interesting because people are not traditionally comfortable in the quiet moments. And I can give an example of my dad, who, when we're on the phone, if there is a single beat of silence, he goes, And it's kind of heartbreaking, even though it's, he's fine, but it's because he is terrified of those quiet moments, that someone's going to give up on him or the conversation will be over.
Like, my worst moments of the year are in a long elevator ride with like 4 strangers. I just find it grueling. Are you super comfy in an elevator? Are you enjoying the awkwardness of it?
I have had interior monologues where I think, everybody here is standing in silence. I'm not the only one standing in silence. So this is something to be comfortable in. And then other times I will take it upon myself to be the host of the elevator.
That's me. Yeah. You can count on the fact that around floor 6, I'm going to make some joke because I just feel like they all need rescuing, and I do too. And even if I tank, it'll be better than the other experience we were having.
It's interesting about, I don't know why I'm going back to this, but I have been thinking about that in terms of like being too close to something to be effective. It's like, if a cop's wife gets murdered, you'd think he'd be the perfect detective on the case because he knows everything about his wife.
Yes.
But of course, he's taken off the case because he's too close to it.
Yes, I've heard you make this point recently.
Yeah, on Howard Stern.
I just
realized what it was about, and then I didn't want to
Yeah.
into it.
And I won't make you go into that. As I was watching clips of you in preparation for this, I was realizing how many times you've had to deal with all that.
I'm kind of done with it because after that interview, all these clickbait.
Yes. You think you're putting something to
came up,
bed.
and it was on purpose, not what I was saying at all.
I know. Oh my God.
And
They
hurts
recently
people.
did this to Kristen, and it was a thoughtful interview, and then it got reduced to some sentence that doesn't even resemble the interview, and then that thing, of course, was incendiary to everyone on all political sides, and it's a disaster.
And no outlet is immune to is classier than doing that because they're all drowning and desperate.
Yeah, they all got to make money in this weird paradigm, which that's required
Because
of them,
if you then click on it, it's all quoted and accurate. Mm-hmm. But nobody clicks on it.
No. Most people are reacting almost solely to a headline they saw. No one's reading the full article on anything. By the way, I'm
totally
guilty of it too. Yes.
Totally guilty of it. But I do now try to be more aware of it. But
when I heard you make that point, it reminded me of something I always think, which is like I will sometimes be against the death penalty, right? And then someone will smartly say, "Oh, what if it was your daughter that was murdered?" And I say, I would want that person killed, but we shouldn't have someone that's been the victim of their child dying be making policy for the country. That's the actual last person, because I'm now so emotional about that there's no way I could evaluate the pros and cons of it or be objective. And probably 90% of the stuff we're saying we are too close to the fire. Are we?
Yeah. And then there's the other side of that of I wish more people who have experienced not having money for health care, not, having education be for the rich, healthcare be for the rich, all these things, people who have touched, if Betsy DeVos had at any point experienced or witnessed someone struggling to get simply an education in the richest country in America, maybe she would have a little more information to go on with.
Have you seen this documentary? The guy's name is Daryl Davis. He's a jazz musician, and he's black. And there's a documentary called
Accidental Courtesy.
It's on
Netflix.
It's incredible.
Wow, I haven't even heard of it.
He in the 70s, he was like a professional musician, so he'd sit in with different bands. And I guess in the late 70s or 80s, country was kind of big, so he found himself in these different country bars. And one guy came up to him and was saying how great he played the piano, and then would he like to sit down and have a drink? And then he's talking with him and his buddy, and he says, "What do you do?" And his buddy nudges him, and he's like, Tell him. He's like, "No, I'm not going to tell him." He's the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. And the Grand Wizard admits to him he's literally the first black guy he's ever spoken to in his life.
Wow.
He had somehow gone his whole life without actually conversing with a black person. He then becomes friends with that guy. And is
this the guy who he goes to his wedding?
Yes, he's gone to Klan rallies where they're burning a cross. And over the years, he has reached out to all these different Grand Wizards or Imperial Dragons or whatever their fun Dungeons and Dragons names are. And he has gotten 15 of the leaders to leave the Klan, and he collects their hoods and shit in his house. And it's just incredibly cool. And you start realizing, you assume everyone had the same experience you did, and some people have never even met a gay person or, that they know of.
People go towards love. Even Trump was a Democrat, but he went towards where he got the love from. Mm-hmm. That's always what happens. That's why if you engage, it goes usually pretty well. If you engage with love. And I'm not saying that's easy or necessarily the right thing to do or that anyone's obligated to do it. But it's pretty fruitful usually. And you see that, hate comes from, this is probably boring at this point, but fear and, the fear of what is unknown. I mean, when on my show, we went to Louisiana and, this family, who all voted for Trump and, and they hosted me for
This dinner. Is on I Love You, America.
Yeah. And, she said they had to Google Jew.
What? Oh my!
But they just had. It's not where their life brought them.
Right.
It's not what they're exposed to. And she said, "Did you know Adam Levine is one?" I said, "I did."
Is he at your Jew meetings?
Yeah, of running the world.
Well, in my own experience, when I was a little kid, the first people I became aware of that were Jewish were our neighbors when I was 5 years old, and I had heard they're Jewish. Around the little apartment complex, it was very well known they were Jewish. And I, in my 5-year-old brain, was trying to figure out what makes them Jewish? And the only thing I could figure out was that they were the only people that drove a foreign car. They drove a Beetlebug.
Oh,
because it was Detroit and everyone drove an American car. And I was like, Jewish people drive foreign cars. That's why they're Jewish. Because that was the only thing that seemed obviously different about them.
I mean, listen, I have two, I was raised by agnostic at best parents, and we were Jewish. Our last name is Silverman, but I grew up in New Hampshire, and all the parents of my friends would say, "Are you from New York?" And I'd go, "What's New York? I'm from here." But looking back at it as an adult, of course, they just thought Jews are from New York, and that's totally understandable. And I also realized that I knew innately, but I didn't know why, or I could have never articulated this as a kid, to show my friends' parents that I was not scary and that I was polite and that, I was nothing to fear. I just had this, I knew instinctively, I guess.
You were somehow an ambassador for Jewish people in their home.
And my oldest sister, who's now a rabbi, we grew up with no religion. We weren't bat mitzvahed. We never went to a bar mitzvah. We didn't know what that was growing up. We just didn't grow up with Jews at all. And she thought being Jewish meant being a Democrat because that's also how we were different in our town,
Yeah, for sure.
So you embraced it then. You weren't I don't know what that is, and I'm not that.
You didn't run from it.
You know, I did a little because I remember a lot. I would say we're Jewish, but like we're not, like we don't,
Qualifying.
follow it. You know, I think
Yeah.
there was a kind of qualifying, that I didn't understand why I was instinctively doing that, but.
Well, you're talking about something that I hope to. There's a weird thread through a lot of the things I hear you say in interviews, and then what I witness in my own wife, which is really interesting because you would think reactions are predictable and objectively will go one way or another. But what you really see, or what I've seen, is it depends so much on what that person's self-esteem is and their sense of power and all these things, whether or not they'll be triggered by something, right? So my example is a lot of people hate Andrew Dice Clay. My wife had no idea who he was. I show her a bunch of videos. She loves it, like I did when I was young.
Oh my God, I loved him.
Oh, and my prediction was that you probably loved him too.
Yeah. I remember listening to his records with a comedian friend in New York when I was first, 19.
Yeah. And I'm just watching Kristen laugh hysterically. And then I'm also quite aware of that quite a few women felt like he was a misogynist and he was terrible and they hated his thing, which I also understand. But I think the main difference is that my wife feels very empowered. She doesn't feel like she's powerless or a victim often. She's attained a lot of cultural capital. There's all these reasons where it doesn't trigger anything for her.
I agree, but I think it's even more so because I think she would be not personally triggered, but she would be very protective of women who are in vulnerable positions if she felt that it came from a literal or sincere place within him.
Right, like she was able to evaluate his intentions and she decided his intentions weren't.
Yeah, he's being
horrific.
I think absurd.
My takeaway, because I've argued with a few people on here about Andrew Dice Clay. He's a very polarizing comedian. But my wife's boss, Mike Schur, really dislikes him and always has. And I'm like, even when you were a kid, you didn't think it was funny, the nursery rhymes and everything, and you just never liked him. And I said, but you do recognize it is a send-up of that archetype. Like he's in on the joke. He's pointing out what a douchebag this guy is, right?
I would love for you to have him on your show because I'm not sure, but I have to believe that's certainly how I inferred it, and so that's how the art was to me.
Right,
you know what I mean? So I don't know, but so it could I could be making a terrible mistake, but he's not. He was very powerful at that time too, so I kind of understand like Nora Dunn, feeling the way she felt, in a time where Saturday Night Live probably it maybe felt like it echoed genuine experience there at that time. I don't know, because I wasn't there then, but
just suffice to say, if you are a woman who just recently someone yelled at you on the street, "Hey, bitch, I'd like to put my tongue in your ass," and then the first line you hear is him saying, "So I've got my tongue up this chick's ass," that's a different context by which you're receiving that, right? I mean, you could come into it having just experienced guys being complete assholes and truly misogynistic, and then you see that and it looks just like more of that. I guess the point I'm trying to make is the receiver has such a big role in this whole thing.
Completely. Like when you say a guy on the street says blah, blah, blah. Now, when I was 19 in New York, I remember walking by construction workers and getting catcalled and looking back at them like, and the guy saw me look back and went, "Not you." And I realized they were talking about me. And it was very humbling. All of a sudden I was like sad it wasn't me.
Sure.
So now I'm much older and self-possessed, and I'm just a different, my commodity isn't necessarily sex.
Did you have like a wake for that? I think you're wrong about that evaluation, but that's fine.
I really but so now if I'm judged by my looks, it's such a treat. And it's so, and if a guy cat called me, I would be like, "Me? You are so sweet." He was
so
like,
romantic.
"Oh my God, he wants his tongue on my asshole." Is like, That makes me almost cry from being moved.
Yeah, he doesn't even know if you've showered. He's just trusting that you're clean.
The first penis I ever saw was my boss at a restaurant I worked at, and
At a taco restaurant,
yeah. And he wouldn't have done that to me now.
Right.
They have an innate instinct of what they can get away with and with whom they can get away with. This is something where I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell anyone about it for so many years, and I can't figure out why. But he must have known, at least innately, why.
Yeah.
Because, gosh, if he had done it 5 years later, I would have been vocal about it.
Yes, you would have shamed him dramatically, probably.
Yeah, and I certainly wouldn't have internalized that shame. And it's very interesting what we innately know as humans, what he innately knew, what I did as a kid as being like the Jewish kid, or all those things that we don't know why we know them, and we couldn't articulate that we know them, but we do.
Yes. Well, I was thinking about this the other day. Monica and I talked about it at length, and I've been trying to think of a way to bring it up on here, but it's so dicey. But I'll just say from my very own experience.
Okay.
So I was molested as a kid, and the guy who did it, the whole reason I was even around this guy repeatedly was he had a go-kart that I really wanted to buy. And he kept saying that he was going to sell me this go-kart for cheap.
Oh, boy.
And so all of the ugliness happens. And for years, first, I don't even tell anyone for years.
Of course.
And there are so many things going on. As a young male, where I grew up, the worst thing you could be on a playground is a girl, but only worse than that was a fag. And so I thought, I'm a homosexual now because I did this thing. Plus I was violent, all these things, right? And I later admitted it to this female friend of mine who'd kind of told me about how she had been attacked by a guy, and I felt like, God, I got to meet her halfway and be honest about myself. And I told her, and all of a sudden it just started getting easier and easier and easier. But over the years, to talk about. And over the years, what I've come to realize is a big bulk of the shame isn't what he did to me. The big bulk of the shame is that I played a role in it. I wanted something from this person. I was in a situation that I didn't like, and I knew I didn't like it, but I kept going forward because I wanted that thing. And I have to imagine for so many survivors of trauma like that, so much of the thing you can't get over is your own involvement. And you need to, for me, I needed to go, oh yeah, you were 8, dude. You really wanted a go-kart. It's okay. You need to forgive yourself. And then what I was thinking about was, almost all of these interactions, barring those where you get tackled in an alley, most of these situations, someone has leverage over someone. And the leverage is you want something from that person, and they've recognized that. And they're going to try to get their devious plan executed using this leverage. And I think all of us carry around the guilt of having been succumb to the leverage people have over us.
She's ambitious. She was being ambitious. Or
yes.
that, God forbid, you wanted something for yourself.
Yes. And I bet a lot of people, there were bells going off going, I've gotten myself in a dicey situation. I shouldn't be here. And I think, I almost think that's where the bulk of the healing needs to happen, is like you just admitting, I ignored my intuition and I really wanted something. And that's okay. I'm a human, and that's what we do, and it's okay.
And you were still taken advantage of.
Yes.
There was no part of what he did that was okay.
No, absolutely not. But I find that like the real stuff you wrestle with, or I'll just speak for myself. The stuff I wrestle with is my mistakes, not yours. Like, you may have done something to me in the past and I'll be mad about it for 2 weeks, but it's me. When I lay in bed, I think, oh, fuck, I really was mean to that person 12 years ago. I'm just carrying my shit.
Last night when I was falling asleep, I thought of something that I did, a dynamic that I created with a man that, if it was the other way around, would have been very clearly not okay.
Right.
I'm sure he wouldn't mind if I said his name, but he's a comedian, and he did stand up. He writes now. He's very successful. Great guy. And I had such sexual prowess. I was very confident, and he was very kind of shy, and he gave me a ride somewhere, and I was talking very sexually and very explicitly at him, you know, and it felt like power. I really was remembering this last night. And I was talking about, you know, sex and orgasms and this and that. And I think there's a part of me that got off on making him uncomfortable. And then he said, well, when I come a lot.
Oh,
And
Wow.
it shut me up. And I laughed, but it was... And he shut me down. Like, it was brilliant because I was feeling so powerful, and the power was coming from making him uncomfortable, and then he made me uncomfortable, and he did it. I mean, I'm in awe of it.
yeah.
But
in
if it
poker,
was
we
the
call that coming over the top on the bet. You raise, and he was like, oh, yeah, I see that. Now fucking double that raise.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have great cards. Oh,
Yeah. Oh, I was hoping you'd fold at this, not. But anyway, the point being that I thought, wow, if that was the other way around, we'd be very familiar with what that is and why it's wrong. And I just thought, oh my goodness, I should call Chuck Martin.
let's get him on the phone. But you know, it's interesting because these things aren't tit for tat because we live in a patriarchy.
Right.
And so that guy had the confidence to come over the top. You know, he just innately from the society he lives in, he's like, well, I can always fight back.
I guess no, and I mean, like what he said, I am fully supportive of it, and I wish I could remember the things I was saying, but it was right of him.
Yeah.
100%. I was using my power to degrade him in a way. I think
For your own titillation and amusement.
just to as feeling power in this world, you know, I think.
Yeah.
Not to justify it. But I thought, ooh, or like when everything was happening this year with Me Too and everything, and I thought, oh my God. I walked into the writer's room and I said, Jocelyn, I'm your boss, and I shouldn't have made you look at my pubes. You work for me. That was a situation where maybe, and you know, of course, I said this in front of the whole writers' room, and she was like, "No, it's okay, Sarah."
Oh well.
I was convinced that I have straight pubes. And
Really?
they didn't believe me.
I wouldn't have believed that.
But then my friend Chris Romano said it's because it's just from like the day.
Oh,
But
they just
even-
got flattened.
Yeah, but even out of the shower, I mean, there may be a bit of a wave, but
So
Interesting.
that's very interesting.
yeah,
Now,
I mean,
if you were to let it grow to its full capacity,
which
it's
I
at its.
feel it's there right now.
Oh, that's fantastic. By the
yeah,
way,
because it's been, you know, it's winter and I haven't.
Sure.
it gets cold out.
need an extra
What
layer.
happens is I just take the beard trimmer and put it on a 1. But it's at a pretty full
So
capacity.
now, when it's at full length and it's dry, you've gotten on the
Not
shower.
silky.
Yeah, it is.
It is wiry, but I
I-
would say it's straight.
I have a mental image in my head, and it's probably wrong. Where's yours come from? I know where mine's from.
Ooh.
Oh, no, I'm just picturing a new image in my
Oh.
head. I don't have a reference point, but I picture it like your hair
Yeah.
Oh wow.
straight down.
Oh, like lying flat.
Because people think I straighten my hair, I think, because I'm Jewy. But it's pretty straight. I have straight
I wonder
hair.
if people think that. Do they think that?
But I think
Or you're just
everyone, yeah.
they accuse you.
like-
Other women accuse you of straightening.
No,
your
but
hair?
if I'm in like a hair and makeup chair for the first time at a thing, they go, "Oh, do you straighten your hair?" And I go, "No, it's not curly."
and I'm
I
not
wish
from
it
New
was."
York, and I don't drive a beetle bug.
From farm town.
Well, I have an image in my head, and it's from that film I was telling you about the other day, the Kama Sutra. They made a movie, and it was like on Showtime when I was
Not a
20.
porn. A regular movie.
It was a regular movie, but it was definitely a soft core-ish.
Oh, all right. Now
A
it's
ton of nudity and stuff.
Right.
And one
Seems
of
like it would be a woman with, it would show women with full bushes.
full bushes, which I love, and it was very long and very straight, which I had never seen.
Interesting.
straight on Indian girls.
Yes, it was straight on.
No, they straightened that then.
Oh my! You think they flat ironed their bush?
For sure.
Oh
For
wow!
sure. They took a hot
Oh wow!
iron to that.
Well,
Ew.
at any rate, it was sticking straight out. You know, parallel to the floor if she was standing.
Straight
Oh.
out.
So that's what I was picturing for you when you just said it was straight.
No,
Straight out.
It just lays flat down.
it's just like, yeah.
Okay, great.
It's like wiry, but not curly. And it's,
Did people corroborate when you showed them at your work? Were they like, oh, you're right?
Jocelyn was like, yeah. And then Glenn was like, no, mine are like that too. And then she showed me, and hers are like that too.
Oh.
Interesting.
I don't know what this thing is that I mean, I guess if out of the shower I like scrunch dried it,
You could get a little crimp going.
maybe.
Or if you
but-
go to bed with it wet. For real, that's what I do. If I want to have a little body in my hair, I go to bed with my hair still a little damp out of the shower. When I wake up, it's got waves.
Really?
Yeah, and my hair is bone straight.
It is?
Not unlike your pubic hair. It is straight as
Straight
country
as
road.
Sarah Silverman's pubes.
What if that became a...
Catchphrase. Well, what you really want to do if you want to get a good curl is while it's wet, you braid it.
Oh.
So you could do little braids, and then in the morning you release the braid, and then it's nice and crimpy and curly.
Well, please do that and report back to us in 2019 if it worked.
Of my pubes?
Yeah, braid it. Go to bed with it wet and braid it, and then see.
Just see.
I don't think I could braid it. I mean, it's only like, at its longest, it's probably an inch and a half.
Oh, really? At full length?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how. I don't know how like a year of not trimming
Yeah.
would be, but
Yeah.
it's not. You know, I like a nice full.
Yeah, I think that's
triangle, but nothing
fantastic.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
You did bring up something that I think about a lot. Again, this is in no way excuses anyone's shit. Like, it's not an excuse. But I do know in my own experience, it's weirdly hard to recognize the power and privilege you have. Like, you don't ever feel, I don't ever, even when I'm like the director of a movie and clearly these 100 people are asking me questions, I still feel like I'm 15 from Michigan. I just don't, you know what I'm saying? It's weirdly hard to recognize that, oh, I guess people do see me that way. It almost feel egomaniacal to acknowledge that about myself, that I...
Well, I mean, I think you're probably a collaborator and stuff, but I mean, this is different. Being the director on a set is different from acknowledging white privilege.
No, I know.
Is that-
Well, no. But I'm saying even in your example where you are at work and all of a sudden you go, oh, I've showed my pubic hair to
because we're-
employees.
I don't feel that way. We're in a writer's room. I throw out garbage and they feel comfortable saying, you know what I mean? Whatever.
Yeah.
And we collaborate. I mean, yeah, I'm the boss, but I don't feel
You don't feel like the boss, do you?
at all.
Right.
But I have to acknowledge that to these 29-year-olds, I certainly am. You know what I mean? I
Yes.
can't, it wouldn't be, I in terms of looking at what we're all, the national conversation around it. You know,
Yes.
The show busy conversation around it at the very least. You know, it's important to acknowledge it.
I guess what I'm wondering is the moment you were driving in the car and you were saying pervy stuff, did you have you were recognizing that you were in kind of an elevated
Well, no,
status
I
position?
had no power in life at the time or anything, but I guess, but I felt a sexual prowess that I was feeling myself. in.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was just remembering this memory last night as I was going to bed and thinking about if that were the other way around. And yes, you're right. We live in a patriarchy and it isn't the same. It's not tit for tat. But I do also, and I'm not worried per se about this, but I want to be conscious of it, that when women take over, you know,
Yeah.
and we are living in a matriarchy, that it is inclusive and we don't just become old white men, because
Yeah.
I think there are examples of that, not with women, but, you know, just in terms of is it the person or the power?
Well, there's been some
Exactly.
damn dark female leaders throughout history. So to me, there's a lot of proof just saying power is corruptible.
Is there a reason to be a billionaire?
right?
Is there a single reason that
Yeah.
that's other than ego?
Yeah.
You couldn't spend it in a lifetime.
But what is weird about that, though, is that so that's a very obvious yes, that's true. Yet fears, which motivate so much of what we do, they are generally irrational to begin with. So the fact that you could have a kind of a rational answer to something that's irrational, in my case, I had a ton of fear of economic security for whatever reason. Just the way I was raised, I obsess about it. I don't need to. I have plenty enough money to not think about it. Yet I also am aware of the fact that I can imagine having $800 million and thinking, I got to get $1 billion just to know I'm safe is stupid and irrational because the whole thing's being driven by a fear, which is just.
Rich people never have enough money. That's why I'm for I keep my overhead so low because I'm not married. I don't have kids. And I need to make sure that I can afford medical care. I'd like to have a live-in nurse in my old age. I'd like to live with friends. I'd like to have I want to be able to live out my years laughing and comfortable and healthy. And so I definitely think about those things, but at the same time.
But then that number, right? Whatever number you had decided would make you feel safe, it just keeps changing, right? You're not. Oh, it doesn't.
I don't know. I mean, I want to make sure I have a lot of, as we all do, a lot of people around me who need to be taken care of, and so it's just, I definitely want to have. I want to make money while I'm in my earning years.
You want to make hay while the sun's shining. I don't know how to tackle this thing I want to talk to you about.
Juicy.
Yeah, generally I feel like I know the points along the conversation I want to have, but I don't. Here's what I want to start with. I ran into you at Comic-Con 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. You were promoting the first Wreck-It Ralph. You were backstage with John C. Reilly, and then Kristen and I walked up. And I saw you, and you had just been on Stern, and you told some really funny story on Stern, and there was a really sexual part of whatever joke it was. And I can't even really remember now. But soon as I saw you, I went straight to that. I went straight to, oh my God, that thing you did, and it was so graphic. But it was your graphic. It wasn't mine. You know what I'm saying?
What,
I was
smelling like Richard Christie's balls?
No, it was something more sexual to you, your own sexuality. It was a story that involved your own sexuality. Okay. And then I just launched right into that, right? And it kind of, it fell very flat. Let's just say that. I remember.
don't remember at all.
Well,
but
this is the hilarity of
listeners have that go right to that thing. I'm sure I didn't think twice about it.
Right, but what? Okay. Well, thank you. But this is, by the way, this is how almost all men, when you make amends, they go this way. The person doesn't even remember.
Right.
But for years, it's been bothering me. And I remember looking at Kristen, and she just kind of gave me that look well, that was a very big swing, and just kind of
oh my God.
There was no pleasantries. I just got right to this the thing. Let's just say that you had an hour interview, and whatever the very pervious thing you said in that interview is what I immediately said I liked about that interview. And I remember John C. Reilly just kind of going that was a pretty strong statement, blah, blah, blah. We walk away. I've mulled it over for years. And here's some other things
you don't
I've
remember
noticed.
What it was, though?
I don't remember. But I don't think it's incredibly relevant. This is what I want to go through. I then have seen you. I even watched a bunch of interviews with you this morning. And I noticed, if you do Andy Cohen, you have to answer who you would fuck.
Right.
Ironically, he asked if you would fuck me. That was one of it was, I don't know how I made that list. Yeah, it was Tom Selleck he wanted to know about.
Oh my God, I really don't maintain.
How can you? You do so many interviews. You rightly data dump those to make room for real life.
Data dump. That's great. Because honestly, even specials, as soon as they're done, they're out. Yeah. They're out of my brain. I couldn't remember a single one.
Yeah, and it probably is weird to you, right? That fans of yours, I may remember more of your jokes than you do.
Yeah, I do just kind of dump it out after, but.
Right.
Yeah.
By the way, you said you would not have sex with me. That was your answer.
Yeah, but it's because you're married to Kristen.
I know, but I felt even
you're
that was
very attractive.
That was probably
the inside and out.
That was probably the correct answer, but I was She would
my
fuck because you
brain
said you'd
shuts
fuck
down.
Tom Selleck, and I was like, well,
I like
that
a
makes
mustache.
yeah, who
And
doesn't?
also just that we're when you're talking, it's basically fantasy, and like he seems like Republican-ish, and I have like there's like a in fantasy you want different things than what you want in real life.
Well, you can almost too. I think there's like literature on this. You can kind of be attracted to your oppressor. It's kind of like what Stockholm syndrome. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I know this is the weirdest thing to put out there right now, but just anecdotally, in my own experience, I couldn't look more Aryan. And I grew up among a lot of Jewish people at West Bloomfield, Michigan. And I found that those Jewish girls were inordinately attracted to me, way more than the blonde girls were.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, there's something psychological going on here. It's not like I'm that objectively just handsome. There's something happening here.
Yeah, it's exotic.
It's
exciting.
exotic.
Something different.
I mean,
Yeah. Could it be darker than that?
the guy who created J-Date met his wife on J-Date, and she's Asian. It's all Jewish guys and Asian women.
Oh, really?
Interesting.
Not all, but very much.
Well, that's one of the many stereotypes about Jewish people that I like is that they say Jewish men make the best husbands. Have you heard that stereotype?
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, of being with myriad types of men,
Right.
and I really have. I think I want to grow and and like figure out what I'm drawn to more. But I do have very good taste in men. I love my exes. I mean, I love them.
Yeah.
But I've never understood how you just stop loving someone.
Couldn't agree with you more. I'm friends with every ex-girlfriend I had. I don't like if you've loved someone, I don't understand how you turn that off. Like I still very much
there can
love.
be things that like I go, oh, that fucking, but I love them. Like they feel like family.
Yes, like something. Yes, for me, a door slides up, and like the whole sexual component is completely gone.
Right.
But the love is so there still. I don't understand.
But it's very evolved. Most people don't have that. Like they need a separation once it's done.
I'll accept that it's evolved, but I also think there might be a fucked up part of me that needs to
Always know you're liked by the person.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm just leaving it open that it might come from a weakness and not a strength. I don't know, but
Yeah, but I think ultimately it is a strength to not be like, have something
it wasn't
negative.
something I felt like I needed to overcome and understand and realize. It is like the Silverman. Seems like the Silverman sister way. Like,
Right.
we all are.
But I'll lay out another theory, which would be it largely depends on how that you exited that relationship. So if you're someone who found out they had fucked your best friend and your sister and all this stuff and blah, 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 then maybe you wouldn't be as loving. But if you're someone that in a relationship has always demanded respect, that generally when you leave relationships, you don't feel like a victim. Or you're smiling like one of your boyfriends fucked your sister and
you
your
didn't
best
even
friend.
care.
No, I did care. But with perspective and time, I do still love him. Yeah.
Okay. But there was someone that did something similar to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
I mean, I will say
By the
that
way,
in every
by the way,
relationship I've been in, it would never occur to me in a million years that he would cheat, and have been cheated on. I never in a million years thought it. And so it was shocking, but it changed me in a way that I wasn't happy to be changed, where like in my next relationship, I said, if you cheat on me, I will murder you and go to jail forever.
Oh.
Because I wanted to make sure. I don't want to ever wonder. I want to just know it won't happen. I can't imagine doing that to someone I'm with. I don't even see other men as sexual beings if I'm with someone. I turn that off. I mean,
well, it sounds like it's easy for you to turn that off. Is it easy?
yeah.
Okay,
And if it's not, then I have to ask myself about the relationship I'm in.
Yes, but I'm going to say something also even worse than the last couple things I said. But the other day I was saying, I genuinely feel bad for pedophiles because
Absolutely.
I have never had to talk myself out of an urge towards a child. I just don't have that. I'm not wrestling with that. It's not like I'm just stronger. I don't have that.
No,
so
yeah, that's
I
a
can't imagine
curse.
anything worse than having to talk myself out of. But now strain, I've had terrible time with. I have to talk myself
Strain?
out. Strain.
Straying.
Yeah, yes.
Oh.
In past relationships, for sure. And I've had an open relationship. So I've in my 20s, I was like, look, I can't do this.
Oh, God, that's true. When I was 19 and 20, I needed to know what every man's balls looked like. I will tell you that. But I also, when I dated someone, I would say, when I'm with you, I'm with you. And when I'm not with you, you don't worry about where I am.
Okay, right. Well, that's how I was too. I was never dishonest about
Right.
it. I knew my limits. I was someone who was wrestling nonstop about it.
Yeah.
Part of it, I'm horny. Bigger part of it, I'm a approval junkie. I need approval from people I deem as having status or beauty or whatever thing. I need that approval. So I've fallen victim to that many times.
One thing I will say about Jews in general, from what I understand, the religion of Jewishness is that sex is a positive thing, even just not for recreation, not just for recreating, but for enjoyment.
Sure.
I lost my virginity as a comedian when I was 19.
Oh, that seems kind of late.
Yeah, doesn't it? But I
Yes.
also didn't get my period until I was almost 18.
Oh, really?
Wow.
I was super tiny.
When did you
And
get
then
boobs?
I got boobs, I got my period and boobs at 17.
Uh-huh.
And all of a sudden I was this sexualized being, but I had never been. I had always been just the quirky, funny, little scrawny kid,
Oh, that's interesting because that kind of gets to.
So I was a bedwetter till I was 16.
Do you think that was part of it?
Yeah, because I was little.
Ah, there's a bit of a mystery with you to me, which is you're super attractive. You've always been super duper attractive since I mean I can see in my head the very moment I first saw you. You were on an episode of Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live, and I was like, they've got a 10 on Saturday Night Live. This is crazy. And then on one of my first trips to Los Angeles, I saw you at a bar and I was like, oh my God, there's that girl and she's so beautiful in person. And to know that you chose the lane of hanging out with dudes and being a comedian has always felt curious to me because I'm assuming you look just like you looked at 19 when you were 15, but you didn't.
Mm-mm.
So you were a scrawny, what kind of kid were you in high school?
I was popular in that I got along with all the different cliques and I stayed on the periphery.
Okay.
So I was liked, but I didn't have any problems with anybody. And I wasn't, I didn't have boyfriends per se. I mean, I had a couple boyfriends, but we never did anything more than kiss a little bit.
Yeah.
'Cause I was just I wasn't.
And were you funny? What was your stock
I
and
was
trade?
funny. Yeah, I was funny.
So when you would get along with people, it was that was the first foot you were putting forward.
Yes, Sarah was the funny one, so I got along and I got along with everybody. I didn't cause any waves and I was not in no way threatening to anyone.
Yeah.
So
Well, then I
that was
wonder,
that was-
when you turned into the thing you then turned into, was that...
Well,
You must have
a notion
noticed.
of-
No, I think most people do. I don't think you do, which is so fascinating. I mean, you're you're a unicorn in that you could have just been a beautiful actress.
That's not. I would have loved to be an ingenue. That's what I wanted. That was my dream. But I learned very early that wasn't available to me
Well,
because Jewish girls are the wacky friend.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Was there
now you see Jenny Slate starring in things and stuff, and
I never
that's very
even-
exciting. An NBC executive who was Jewish, a man who told me the only attractive Jewish woman is Natalie Portman. So she was the only one who and I love her. I think
transcended
she's
her
brilliant.
Jewishness.
She was allowed to play people who deserved love.
Uh-huh. Interesting.
And I talk about this, and this is my experience, but believe me, I know that there are plenty of women of color that are just starting to be able to also, but they understand too. It's you're the
Monica.
friend,
Monica's
the
an
expert.
actress. When's the last time you saw a female lead of a show or a movie? That
Mindy,
was
but she
Indy.
did that
That was the
all
first one.
herself, and she's the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. It's the walls are just breaking down, but this was I was told in no uncertain terms that I was, I could be the exposition for the I could say, but
You
you're
could
a lawyer and he loves you.
You could recap like the second act
And
for us.
after a bunch of those, I just decided I'd rather just do stand up or do my own thing.
Right. Because here's something I've noticed in Hollywood, and I have to imagine you've seen it too, which is there are a lot of men in Hollywood who they didn't get girls growing up. And then they achieve this level of fame that gives them access to all these women.
Right.
And there's something, it's like hard for them to compute. I've seen like the results be many different things. I've seen it be misogyny on some level. Like they hate women because now the women like them.
It's rage. But it's also they want it.
Of course, all you want.
Jimmy Kimmel, when I dated him, I remember him saying, I would never want to date someone who wouldn't give me the time of day in high school, someone who I know wouldn't like me in high school. And that's very rare for men, I think.
Yeah.
Totally. What you see a lot of, and it extends beyond just women, but they end up occupying this kind of alpha status role, but they just weren't that person in high school. They have kind of no training. And they just kind of mismanage it, or they're doing what they've seen in movies. I don't know. It's all clumsy.
What they imagine is cool guys, so they'll wear. Like I know a guy who's like definitely was a nerd and then became very popular, and he's wonderful. But it's like he gets tans and he wears a leather jacket because that's what the cool.
Yeah, you
guy
drive a
wears.
Porsche, and it's like So I'm sympathetic to that, but I'm wondering. You weirdly, so all through high school, we make our identity right in high school. For me, it was I had 9th and 10th grade. I couldn't have looked crazier. I mean, I was 6'3", 140, long straight hair and back, perm on top, huge nose, acne. I was a fucking mess.
Perm on top.
My brother convinced me that we needed to get perms because our hair didn't have enough body, and I did it.
And how are your pubes?
My pubes were
Straight?
mildly straight.
Okay.
Yeah. Straight-ish, I guess. And God bless those 2 years because I said, oh, look, this face of yours isn't going to get you in the door. You've got to be funny.
Get a perm.
You got to get a perm. And then when that didn't work, I'm like, it's time to be funny and you got to be a good dancer. These are the things you're going to be.
Ooh.
And those things I put a lot of time into. Luckily. And then I turned out normal looking, but boy, those years kind of defined me.
Well, yeah.
And who I am.
Like, there are, people who grow up with affluence or beauty. And honestly, like, my heart goes out to a lot of them because they do not have skills for life and they never had to have a personality. And that can't be enjoyable.
But clearly when you hit 19 and you go through puberty and you're very attractive.
I lost my virginity to a comedian and then that was it. I just like every, and I got a reputation for fucking comics. But I in my defense, women are attracted to smart, funny, all those things. Like, I wanted peers, not just peers, but people who are hilarious to me. That was what was attractive to me. And it's unfair to say, well, she fucked comics and he just fucked waitresses. Well, it's not, I wasn't drawn to fucking waiters.
Yeah.
I was drawn to fucking brilliant, people that, and guys, in general were, fine fucking waitresses. This is not to put down waitresses. I've been a waitress, but to use broad strokes. They could fuck every waitress in every town on the road and not get a reputation at all.
Yeah.
And I was like people who I still
Respect it.
adore and like are, they're still in my life because they're comics,
Yeah.
But like it wasn't I wasn't fucking more people than the guys.
No, anyone you would have fucked, they would have said she only does blank. It's the difference between male and female sexuality. It's like guys get to do whatever they want.
But I didn't have a guilt around my sexuality until I was told to. So like to me, I was like, I remember I kept Noxema in my backpack so that I could wash my face wherever I wound up. But like I would see guys and be like, what do his balls look like? What do his balls look like? And it didn't seem to me to be, I wasn't getting favors in exchange. I everything I got from my own merit. I remember even Colin
no one's
Quinn
going to
just-
buy a ticket to see you perform because you fucked someone they
No.
love as a comic. That's not really how it works. That's not the calculus.
You don't fuck your way to the top in comedy.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have to be funny.
But have you ever kind of drilled down into that a little bit, which is, for me, I have a female friend who's a comic. She's very funny, and she likes this guy. And she was saying, but he's not funny. I don't know if I can be with someone who's not funny. And I said, well, walk me through that. You're afraid you're going to go to a party and he'll be boring and that'll kind of embarrass you.
Don't you your wife is funny. That's part of what you're attracted to.
Yeah, but I'm dead honest about what is happening for me and my own ego, which is I said to her, and I'd say it to myself, are you sure that you're bothered he's not funny because he's not going to entertain you as much as you want the approval of someone who's also very, very funny and smart?
Right.
That the only way that it'll feel good is that the approval's coming from somebody that you respect and admire.
Yeah, I always when I say
we
what
just
I
think
would like in a
attraction is
man-
attraction, but that's bullshit. There's layers going on of attraction that are your ego being fulfilled, right?
I would say for me, looking for a man, he doesn't. I would like it if he was funny. If he's not funny, that's fine. But he has to know that he is not funny.
Right, not try
Because
to be
I'm very
funny.
much not attractive to someone who thinks he's funny and is not funny.
Yes, that is a rough
a
hang.
horrible-
Yeah,
horrible
you would not have dated my father. He was certain I got my sense of humor from him, and he would display it everywhere we went together, and it was quite cute and rough for me at times. But
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
okay, I'm going now all the way back to the sexuality thing because I've noticed that when you're on shows, you get asked different questions than say a male comic's going to get asked. I guess if you notice that, and I'm super guilty of it. When I have been around you when I was younger, I'm very conscious of the fact that you're very attractive.
Oh, this is the most exciting podcast interview, honestly. I've done
This
it
is
so many
dead
years.
true. You're crazy funny. I'm a fan of your comedy, but you're super pretty. And so I can't stop kind of being aware of that. And I think I've always, in some way, wanted some validation from you that extended beyond just you being funny. And I have to imagine many of the people around you have had a similar thing. And is that exhausting? Are you even aware of it? You don't seem
what
to
do
be
you mean?
aware of it. That you, I would imagine, just want to be evaluated on being funny. But there's this sexual component.
I would say that right now in my life, I love being objectified, because it's thrilling at this point. I mean, Natasha Leggero, who's brilliant,
Love her.
every time I would see her, she does something to me aesthetically that my face hurts from smiling when I just see her and I look at what she's wearing and she just is, and I would just always go oh, I just want to eat you like a piece of candy. I can't even take it. And at one point she goes, I'm more than that. And I go, oh my God, no, you're brilliant. I mean, to me, that's such a given.
Yeah.
Because I'm such a fan, but she also is just so aesthetically she just does something to me chemically.
Yeah.
She feels so good on my eyeballs.
I completely
But
understand.
of course I understood when she was like, I'm a comedian. And I was just, it's funny to me because of course I
don't
see her
reduce
as
me to
that.
just being
but it is true. It's like women are just fucking demonized if they lose their looks in any way, or if they try to do something to their face to try to make them look
To
younger than
mitigate.
their assholes. So
Yeah.
there's it's like lose just by not dying. They are punished
Yeah.
by not dying and continuing to live, and that my face is I like the way I look, but I mean, it's pointier. My skin is looser. My eyes are kind of closing a little. I can feel like my face falling off my face kind of a little bit. And I'm trying to embrace it. I mean, it's really fascinating. It's a very slow moving horror movie. But I do think that it could have a happy ending because sometimes I go, oh, I'm not young and hot. I don't know if that's not my power anymore. I have a different kind of power, you know.
But I guess my point is if I was talking to George Carlin, if he was here, I would have a million questions about his comedy. I would never make him walk down a path where I talk about his looks, but I am so drawn to talk about your looks, and I have to imagine that's nauseating. I also imagine I need to not
It's been a
do
long
that.
time since that.
It doesn't seem like it bothers you. So
I remember being on Jimmy's show, and you know, I love Jimmy, but
We both
he
love
said,
Jimmy.
I was wearing a football shirt or a baseball shirt, like it was my thing at the time, you know, and he goes, oh, you always wear a football shirt or something, and I remember thinking, and maybe I said this, but I just said, hey, you know what? Seinfeld always wears a button down.
Right.
You're gonna come on the show and you're gonna go, why do you always wear a button down? You always have a button down.
Right.
Like it's just fucking what I'm wearing.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine a guy, like every time Adam Carolla's on your show, he wears a maroon button down with a black blazer. You never mention that. You don't point that out.
Yeah. I guess
know?
Jay Leno's not on his show a lot, but yeah, he's always in denim on denim. That's his kind of look.
Denim on denim.
So it hasn't, do you think being pretty though?
I got to stop talking about it, but I'm going to keep talking about it.
I know. Well, I'm trying to own it and work through it, and I'm trying to understand why I do it and just call myself out on it. But I saw this at the Groundlings. When I was going through the Groundlings, I found that the girls or women that were really attractive weirdly had a harder time. Not that you're ever going to feel bad for those people,
You know
but I
what?
think it elicited some jealousy with the other female cast members. I think people that were watching the audience weren't accustomed to seeing someone pretty be very funny. Like, I think there were just weird hurdles that I noticed that I thought, oh, that's so weird. I never thought I'd be sympathetic to someone who's really attractive. But in comedy, it can be dicey.
Well, I think what makes people funny is a survival skill that they had developed in childhood. So a lot of times it was the fat kid making the fat jokes before anyone else could, or the ugly, you know, whatever ugly is,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. And so for me, I would say I was very hairy, I was very hirsute.
Okay.
I was very, you know, especially, you know, I was in a very blonde, strawberry blonde world.
Yeah.
And I was teased for that. I was a bedwetter and sent to sleepaway camp every summer. And so I had a healthy amount of adversity to make me very funny.
Right.
But there's it isn't what your looks are not always your adversity. I think that like maybe growing up ugly as you did.
Yeah. Well, let's just be clear. 9th and 10th grade.
But like, you know,
7th grade, I was
some
very
people will look
attractive.
at you and go like, you're a good looking white guy. Oh, it's so hard for you. Everybody, there's always going to be someone who has it harder and always going to be someone who has it not as hard. You know, I mean, people are used to what they are used to. And when they see something that is not what is from their Rolodex of what they know, it's going to be harder for them to believe. That is not on a woman who looks a certain way to that's not their problem. But I will say a lot of times, you know, you might hear a white male writer. For me, I'll say comedy writer, a white male comedy writer who says, I can't even get a job anymore. I can't get a job because I'm a white man. And to that I say, sure you can. You just have to be undeniable. Like everybody else besides you has had to be.
Right.
You have to be indispensable
Yeah.
and undeniable. And I believe in you. I think you can do that. But, you know, men don't take that extra. They don't go, not men.
Yeah,
like
some men.
anything, but some men, hashtag not all men. Some men go, oh, it's harder for me now. That's not fair. And they don't take it that extra step and go, oh, this is how it's been for everybody else.
Yeah.
And it's like
And I don't even think it's at the point where it's like everybody else. We're not even there.
absolutely not.
Yeah. Yeah. Not even close.
So, I only ask
Well-
people to take it one more step to take it beyond their own selves. And
I'm kind of conflating a couple different topics, actually, because I will say that I've been told by other comedians I admire, like, hey, dude, you can't be in good shape. Like, that's not what a comedian isn't in good shape, which is there's a weird bracket. Black comedians can be in great shape. Like Eddie Murphy was a sex symbol, and he dressed cool and he had a leather suit, and he can do that. When white guys aren't supposed to do that, it's very interesting. It's just fascinating.
I would say if your whole thing is your rock hard abs, it's not wildly funny.
Right.
Eddie Murphy wasn't lifting a shirt showing his abs on his poster for his comedy special.
He wasn't.
There are some people who do that, and I find it, and I think they're funny, but there's something heartbreaking about it because it isn't. I remember seeing, and this is a comedian, I'll just say,
Okay.
a comedian's headshot. And his headshot was two whatever fancy cars are. I don't know anything about cars. Maseratis.
Oh, I know who this is.
Ferraris or something, parked like this and this,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
his foot's up on one. And that's just not what comedy is.
Yeah.
It's like it's an underdog thing, and it isn't cool to like stuff. I mean, also that's another thing that I'm lucky about. I've never understood it. I don't know what's special about diamonds that other people can't have them. I just
I think
don't.
primarily, yeah.
I
that's
never
what,
understood fancy cars or expensive or things. It has never been anything that I've, luckily for me, pinned my worth on. If anything, the opposite. I mean, I would be so embarrassed to drive a schmancy car or have stuff. I don't have storage in my apartment, so it's like I can't even have stuff.
Yeah.
If I can't fit it on a shelf, it goes.
Well, but I think that probably just speaks to you having found a lot of fulfillment and validation and attention through doing something else.
I was raised by people who are not into stuff.
Well, okay, yes, but what I'm saying is I can be mildly sympathetic when I see the guy in front of Jerry's Deli and he's in a Lamborghini and he's making a real meal out of getting into this car. He's been in there for fucking 8 minutes and I'm trying, right? And at first I'm like, look at this douche. Oh, I hate this guy. What a loser, blah, blah, blah. And then I go, this guy probably isn't funny. He can't dance. He can't ride wheelies on a motorcycle. And he wants what I want. And I'm no better. He just doesn't have the tools.
His way of validation is somewhere else.
Is at the fucking valet at Jerry's Deli. And I find it repugnant, but I'm also sympathetic. Like, we all want the same
sweetie,
thing.
You deserve love.
Yes, we all want the same thing. We want like approval and love and people to be attracted to us, not even meaning romantically, just drawn to us. And we're all trying all these various techniques, and some of them are really egg on the facey. I find the purple Lamborghini to be a bummer.
But also,
I feel terrible
if
for
I
that
get
guy.
this expensive car, then girls will know I'm rich, and then they'll like me. And then I go, why are those the girls you want?
Yeah, well, they're better than no girls, I think.
But it's hot, vapid twats or nothing?
Are better than your hand.
There are
yeah.
so many more women than men. Men have. The worst man can find love. You know what I mean? Like
That is true.
it's
My mom's finding herself in that situation. Not that she's even ready to date, but her husband died 6 months ago, and I've been talking to her a lot about it. And she's like, Dax, let's just be honest. I'm 68, and if I want to catch someone who's like intellectually stimulating and a good time, I got to shop in the 80-year-old, because anyone my age that's a guy who's intelligent and funny, he's going to be with a 50-year-old woman. That's just the fucking facts on planet Earth.
yeah.
I don't like this dynamic.
There are a handful of men who want to be with a peer. Like
there are a handful.
I'm
You're
single
right.
now, right? So I have friends that are like, you could totally date a younger guy, and I go, oh, thank you. I know you mean that as a compliment, but I'm just not interested. I'm so lucky that I could be loved by someone in their 30s,
Well,
I guess. But
you really
I want
are.
to be with someone my age. I want to be with someone who knows the aches and pains and perspective of being in your 40s, well into your 40s.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you're
But like, so that means I have to be with a 60-year-old?
well,
I think I can be with someone exactly my age.
I like having you here so much. I don't
It's
know.
terrific.
I
If
don't.
not, this did not go the direction I thought it would go.
Oh, what
What did
direction
you
did you
think?
think?
I thought we would talk more about comedy and work.
Oh, yeah.
But
I'm only
thrilled.
I'm only so interested in that. I'm super interested in why we all do the things we do.
But the things you're talking about are things that aren't my doing.
You're right. I'm talking
They're
about some
other
societal
people's
things.
perceptions of me, of which I have,
No control.
You're right.
don't have to do with me.
Well, one of the things that has to do with you that I wanted to ask you about, because you've brought it up a couple times, so it's not a totally graceless segue, but you peed the bed a
Yeah.
ton. And then even after you got fired from SNL, you peed the bed like 3 times in a week. Was that a bit or that's
No,
real?
that's true.
That's
Yeah.
true, right?
I peed the bed 3 times with 3 different men in the bed.
Really?
One was a friend.
Right.
And I
It
was
was
just
just a-
sleeping in his bed.
Yeah.
And 2 were lovers.
Right. I've woken up in a wet bed a couple times, but both of us had blacked out, and I don't know who did it. We kind of blamed each other. But regardless, even when I thought it was her, I didn't really care. But it wasn't that big of a deal. And that was your experience, right?
Well, one was my friend Dave Rath, who I was staying with him while I was out here in LA, and we're very good friends. And if he didn't hook up with someone, then I would sleep in bed with him. But
Right.
otherwise, I'd sleep on the couch. That was the deal. It was fine. And that night, we went to a party until really late, and I slept in his bed with him. And I woke up at like 4 a.m, and I couldn't believe it. I had peed in his bed.
Full evacuation.
And my heart, and it just took me right back to being a kid.
The shame.
And I just thought, if I don't tell him right now, I'm gonna, it will be bad. So I just like hit him and I go, Dave, I peed in your bed. And he just went, it's okay, just put a towel down. And I was like, oh my God, I love you so much.
Now having kids who occasionally pee the bed, yet you're just so tired in the middle of the thing. You're like, I don't care. Just throw towels down, throw a couple more blankets. Well, I'll ruin anything just to get me back to sleep, and then we'll fucking deal with it in the morning. But you've been through therapy. Is there a known thing for peeing the bed? Is it like a predictable outcome for some stage you're wrestling with? Do you know?
I mean, with that, I don't know what it was. It was just, who knows, seemed like some kind of regressive, I don't know. But in terms of like being a bedwetter as a kid.
You were
it
the
was-
baby of the family, right? You're the
Yeah.
youngest.
I was a baby. But my dad was a bedwetter and my oldest sister was
Oh.
a bedwetter.
So maybe you're just like genetically
It's like enuresis, like you're little. We all were little until like a late growth spurt.
Uh-huh.
And then we were like, I'm fairly tall and, I'm not small. But
Right.
and I've got big boobs, but I was totally flat chested and I didn't, I like had just one summer growth spurt really late.
I just like, do you know anything about OCD?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever have it?
No, but
Oh.
I'm familiar with it.
So I had crazy OCD as a kid, and I had all these like fucking routines I had to do, and everything had to be done twice, and it was maddening, right, for a long stretch. And then I ran into someone, an actor, and she was telling me that she pulls her eyelashes out, right, which
Yeah,
is
I've heard of that.
is an OCD thing, and I said, oh yeah, I had OCD when I was a kid, or whatever you want to call it. And she goes, well, obviously why you have OCD, and I'm like, no, why do I have OCD? And she goes, oh well, you pick these weird things that you can control because you're in an environment you feel very out of control. And then I just kind of went backwards, and I was like, oh by God. I started doing all that stuff the moment this one stepdad showed up in my life, and then that just kind of ran until he disappeared. And I was like, oh my God, it's that simple. Like it was really, that's what it was.
Wow.
And I think so many of these things I read, I don't know that this
A lot of those things, eating disorders, they're all control issues.
they're all like, I think that's what's
I mean, a lot of people become cops because they have no control in their lives.
100%. In people, there's literature on asthma being a way that kids can control their environment. There's a lot of research about it being psychosomatic and as a way for you to take a little margin of control over your life. And I think so many of these things we all have, right? There's all these different outcomes to some very basic stuff that happens to us. One I'm noticing as an adult in the age we're at is I have an autoimmune disease, psoriatic arthritis. I have friends who have gout. I have friends who have this, who have that. To me, it's like, oh, we're all allergic to some of the food we eat, and it can take a billion shapes. Mine happens to be psoriatic arthritis. For this person, it's rosacea. For this person, it's that. But I think at the core of it all, we're probably just eating some stuff we're allergic to, and that's the outcome. And similarly, in childhood, it's like you can have any number of things that are a result of maybe not feeling in control on any level.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if like bedwetting was somehow a decision you were going to fucking make whether anyone liked it or not.
I've been told different things because it's all so muddy. And like one thing I remember being told was that I stopped wetting the bed at a normal age and then started again when my parents got divorced. But then I asked my dad and sister recently, and they said, no, I think you always were, but it's just muddy. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, God, I wished more than anything I wouldn't wet the bed, but of course that's not part of it. Yeah.
But it's certainly suspicious. It's not like, well, who knows? Maybe you had a physical component. Maybe there's a valve in there that's you got from your dad. Who knows? But I think it's definitely curious if there was a spell after divorce and then there was a spell after getting fired.
Because hereditary things can be hereditary that aren't just physical.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
My dad was a chronic bedwetter, and his dad beat the shit out of him every day. You know? And, so maybe that's connected. I don't know.
Yeah.
And were you guys talking about misophonia?
Yes,
Oh, yeah, misophonia.
We love that here.
Yeah.
I have that,
You do.
and it's since early teens, and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And it's fucking real. And
Have you done a 23andMe test, DNA test? You did it?
Well, I did that Finding Your Roots show, so you have to do that and Ancestry.com. But I don't.
I think this
get the
stuff's
results.
progressing very rapidly as they get more and more people submitting. They're learning things really quickly. But one of them now, when you do it, say you had done it when Monica and I did it like a few months ago, it'll tell you if you have the genetic marker for misophonia. Like they know whether you have it or not from your DNA.
Oh my God!
They know if I have wet. They told me I have wet earwax,
Wet or
and
dry.
Monica has dry earwax.
Yeah. But they're right. Like you can if you have wet or dry earwax, and it's all been pretty accurate.
Wow.
And Monica, trying not to get too jealous, she has elite muscle mass.
I don't want to brag, but yeah.
Elite athlete muscle mass.
Yes.
Wow.
And
I did not put it to use.
Oh, well, that's probably just as well. You get more injuries. I thought I'm so fucked up, my back and shit, like my knees, and it's just I'm in training just to live the rest of my life comfortably, and I like playing sports and stuff. But I was like, this is so unfair. I was an athlete all growing up, and the guy was like, oh yeah, that's why.
I want to hear just a tiny bit more about misophonia. Like, what do you get triggered by? What sounds?
What I've definitely learned is because some people will be like crunching in front of me and go, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm and I go, oh no, it didn't bother me at all. But it's if I have any stress in my body at all, it gets triggered. And if I hear someone wrestling with a Fritos wrapper or, God, I will just say the idea of someone eating an apple in a quiet car is the most terrifying thing I can think of in my life.
Oh, wow.
How do you feel about like someone chewing a gigantic piece of gum?
Terrible. Now, and this is just like my dad. It's so crazy. I secretly chew gum. I chew gum in my car, and sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night and just sit up in bed and chew gum.
Oh,
and
wow.
spit
Like
it out and
maniacally.
yes,
Okay.
maniacally.
Yeah.
But and there are some people that chew gum like the way I chew gum, and it's not, it's their mouth is closed, and it's not like. But if there's, if I have any control, like on a show or something, there's no gum on set because I just sound people more than anyone I know chomp gum.
Yeah.
And if someone's in my eye line or this, I don't even notice. I'm never bothered by that.
Right.
But if someone in the corner of my eye is chomping gum, I can't remember a line. I don't know a single thing I'm about to say because my brain, I get paralyzed.
Hyper-focuses on that.
I completely get paralyzed. And then I have to contend with a rage I can't control, like a rage in my body that I desperately plead with. And I go, just please, this is just a person eating. They're minding
They just
their own
want
business.
their
They
breath
don't
to
want
smell
any
nice.
trouble. You know, but mostly what I do is I just immediately take myself out of the situation. I don't want to make anyone feel bad. I don't want to. But if I'm in a situation where I am stuck, like if a makeup lady at a job is chomping gum, I'll have to say something, and I just say, this is me. I have a fucking weird thing, and it's not you, and I can only just ask if you would not chew gum around me because I have a fucked up thing.
You must hate having to say that.
Oh,
don't you?
it's awful. And, you know, it's so embarrassing. And luckily, oftentimes people understand and they go, oh God, sorry, totally, you know. But it's so scary because I know it's me and it's not them. And I can only just hope that they'll be kind even if they don't understand it. You know,
Right.
people, if you don't understand something personally, it's very hard for people to have any kind of sympathy.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's so weird and bizarre. It's clicking a pen.
Oh.
If someone's clicking a pen, click, 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 click. I mean, I go out of my fucking mind.
I want more than anything.
Chewing ice is just feels like an assault.
I want so bad to put you in a room, handcuffed,
No.
and I want to send Kristen in with a pack
With
of
her gum. You know what? Kristen has chewed gum in front of me.
No way.
She is
The worst.
the worst. And there's something about her
It's so aggressive.
that it doesn't bother me.
Oh,
I don't know
my
what it is.
Of
It makes no
course.
sense. Now, I suppose if I had stress in my body, it would be bad and I would have to say something. And it's not because, like, she's Kristen Bell, because there have been people that I'm horrified that I have to, because I can't take myself out of the situation. I mean, I watched The Shape of Water.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see that movie?
I did, yeah.
It's a lovely movie, a beautiful fairy tale.
Yeah.
Michael Shannon's character eats these hard
Oh, I
candies.
loved that.
Right.
I loved that.
It was full-blown panic attack for me because I was watching it with a group of people. I had to block my ears, close my eyes, and
Because he'd let it
make
clank.
noise in
clank.
my head.
He'd
Like,
let it
I
clank
do
in his
this.
teeth and stuff, which I really liked.
Oh my God. I
Yeah.
mean, Brad Pitt, who I really love as an actor,
Oh, we
very
love him.
attractive, very
Yeah.
just thinking about him, he eats in every movie, and I have to block my ears and close my eyes real tight and just to take myself to another place.
So
I have to
Ocean's
totally
11 is
Yeah, that's
past for
tough
you.
for you.
That's where he ate in every scene, famously.
I can't.
Oh,
So loud.
well, but I don't have
chunky.
it. I don't have misophonia, but occasionally I'll be with Kristen, and I honestly, if I turned to the right and a Clydesdale horse was chewing a full pack of Hubba Bubba, I wouldn't be surprised. That's how loud
No,
and
I have
wet
seen her chew
it
gum and
is.
it's out of control.
It's really, really.
Never noticed it.
You haven't?
No, I don't notice
I'm
it.
shocked. It's very aggressive, and
There's a part of me in my misophonia that would look at that and think that's so fucking rude. But she's not at all her intention. She's just chewing gum.
you know that she's coming from a great place,
you know what?
and she'd stop if you
My
asked her.
dad definitely has it because growing up we would chew gum and he would say, "Ugh, only whores chew gum."
Oh wow!
But I know it's because
Did he elaborate?
no, he just would shame us into spitting out our gum. But it was I know it's because now I know he had misophonia. It starts in your teens too, and for me it was hearing my stepfather, who is the kindest, most wonderful man you could ever meet, John O'Hara. I could hear his saliva mixing his food in his mouth.
Yeah.
And that was it taking hold of me. It wasn't him. He was
Right.
just eating.
Right.
But I just every night would eat dinner in my room because I couldn't
Bear.
Could-
Did you ever?
Is this a handle
Problem
it.
with relationships? Like if you're at dinner with them?
Yeah, well, because I've had boyfriends who just say, you are being rude and you're just deciding to
Not like
you aren't,
You're making yourself feel this way.
and he just believed I was making it up. And then, like, I've had boyfriends who really understand and go like, I'm going to eat this cereal in the kitchen.
Oh, my God. That's thoughtful. I got to be honest, before we saw that there was a genetic marker for it, I thought it was horseshit myself. I really found it. I just thought, oh, no, you're just crazy intolerant of other people.
Intolerant. That's what he said.
Yeah.
You're intolerant.
I bet I know who said that. Do you exercise regularly?
Yeah.
And how much of that is for mental? Because
lot of it.
back to like people telling me you're too in shape to be a comic.
Well, also,
I'm like
people will also say don't get mentally healthy.
Well,
Yeah.
that's my kind of point,
That's
which is
bullshit.
like ultimately I have to be me. Whether or not that fits into some box, like me mentally, I have to work out or I will be on antidepressants. It's just that simple. I need to do X amount of exercise a week or I will need to be on antidepressants. So there's no option. I guess I could eat really shitty too, but I kind of want to live.
Absolutely be in shape and be funny. They just are saying don't oil up your abs and photograph.
Well, I've done that in a movie, so I guess they had a point. I also,
That's in a
the older I
movie.
get, I'm okay with people disagreeing too. It's my route, right? Isn't that kind of like one of the nice
on Twitter,
things?
I'll be like, "Well, Sarah said this. I used to be a fan. Now I'm not." And I would go, "Oh," and then I just go like, "Yeah, I'm definitely going to disappoint you if you're looking for me to say everything you agree with."
Yes, I had the pleasure of performing with you a couple times at Largo in my brief run at doing stand up. One of the sets you did there was explaining that you had done a bit at a TED conference and that a TED talk, and that there was all this fallout over it. And then what you had come to realize in the end is that if you were to apologize for this routine you did, you'd actually just be apologizing to advocates, not the people themselves. Do you remember this?
Oh, yes. There's another example of this too where I don't remember that as a bit, but on the Sarah Silverman program, we had mentally challenged people on the show and they didn't want to let us do that. And I said, you're not letting us talk about people who exist in the world and have them in this because this is comedy and it's an art form that you don't think can reflect the world, but it more than anything reflects the world.
When I heard that, I found that to be weirdly liberating.
That's right. Oh, so when we were going to have, we had some mentally challenged people on the show. And, but yeah, it's just, you're not responding to, you're not worried about mentally challenged people. You're worried about their advocates.
Yeah.
And as someone who believes I am an advocate, I think they should be reflected in art. Because it means they exist and exist and they're beautiful.
Yeah. It's weird. Yeah. The alternative is like, just, I guess, ignore that they're even here. I'm regularly defending the notion of the whack pack to people because I'm like, okay, let's just really look at this. So here's a weird mix of people. Some of them are addicts. One guy's a drunk. Some of them are mentally challenged. Someone has a speech impediment, blah, blah, blah. You don't like them being used on the show because you think they're being made fun of. And then my argument is, okay, I'm looking at all their lives and they have this purpose. They're famous like we wanted to be famous. They have this whole life and world. They should be so they're characters in this play. They want to be a character in this play and they're having all this fun as a result of it. I'm not seeing how excluding them from that would be kinder.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I waver. I don't have a definitive take on it. It always bothered me calling Wendy the retard.
Yes.
But I do like how Howard has changed with the times. He used to say faggot all the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he would never say that today. And it's not because it's socially unacceptable. It's because he fundamentally changed. I don't think he would have any desire to say that word anymore.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting that he's willing to air old episodes where he says that, because I think he's exposing something. He's not erasing it from history, and it really has a whole new meaning. It's uglier. And I like the changes. Like Eric the midget became Eric the actor.
Yes.
And Wendy the slow adult. And as long as he grows and changes and lets the show reflect that, I think it's interesting.
Well, and that's the very last thing I want to talk to you about is we're in a really unique phase where everything we've done is pretty much accessible at all times now. If you were Carlin, you couldn't just go see a set of his. You couldn't bring it up on YouTube. There was like a certain, I can't explain it, but he was free to live in a certain time period, and then he was free to evolve, and then he was free to be evaluated on that day about that thing. And you couldn't just kind of bring something back and shove it in his face. But we now are in that reality, and we're comedians. And to your point about Howard, we're evolving all the time.
I used to so much I cringe about.
Right.
I've done. I mean, good grief.
And what's interesting is like your kind of job is to take it to the very edge. That's really your job, and see if you can stay just barely inside the boundary of that. And your particular brand of comedy, as I understood it, was you're speaking kindly and then you're saying horrific things. And that in itself is the bit. Is that it's coming at you. It's like a flower that's got a shit smell to it. It's like that's the premise.
That is so sweet.
A beautiful flower that smells like shit.
A bit of a formula to what I was doing in the beginning. And it certainly was a character where I would say the opposite of how I really felt. And that was the comedy, the contrast of how it was represented and the explicitness of how it was presented. And then my hope was that to use a math term, the absolute value transcended, because you can only feel safe laughing at something fucked up is if you feel like that person, going back to what we were talking about at Dice.
Yeah, has good intentions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think
it was
you were...
character. It was an arrogant, ignorant character. And that was, then when I did the Sarah Silverman program, that was all what that was. And then I found I had a real identity crisis after my first special, because I go, oh, well, who am I? I'm this. I do this thing. And the whole thing about it was the element of surprise.
Yeah.
But so if I do that thing that people like about me, there is no surprise. It's what they're expecting. And then I got so caught up in worrying about what others want to see. And it took me realizing that comedy dies in the second guessing, and you just got to keep evolving.
Well,
and you lose fans. You have to be willing to lose fans. You have to be willing to bomb, because otherwise you're not writing new shit or reflecting who you are now.
Yeah.
But there's stuff that I did that I'm ashamed of now, not just because it's no longer accepted, but because I now have more information and I like being changed by new information. And I thought I was so woke. I grew up in White, New Hampshire, with bleeding heart liberal parents, and I knew that racism existed. And that it was something that I could only understand that I don't understand. But that's as far as it went. And so because I do see the fucked up liberal bubbleness of stuff that I did when I started out. Because it was all based on, I know this is wrong, so I can say it.
Right.
And but it didn't ever occur to me, because of my only experience I had to see the world through was my own white experience, that could hurt people. And I'm really have no interest in that. And I also believe I can make people laugh without, now you can't please everybody.
Right.
But certainly there are things that cut people that I wasn't that I was ignorant to.
Yeah, well, there's part of your brain, right, that's going, no, that is the joke. That this
Right.
is a vile thing to
This is a
say.
joke about racism. I'm
Yes.
illuminating
Yeah.
racism.
Like
by
my
being
favorite
racist.
thing my favorite joke of yours in that period was my ex-boyfriend who's half black. Oh God, I just listening to how I've said that. I'm so negative.
No.
He's half white. I fucked it up. What?
Well, because you have to say, it was something, there had to be something that was negative that wasn't that. So it was something like, oh, I fucking fucked up this whole relationship with this boyfriend, with my boyfriend who was half black. And, then I say, oh, I'm being so negative. I shouldn't say that. He's half white. But it was something in the sense, but I remember that makes it look like I'm being negative in some other way.
Yeah. So
But,
there's so many ways to look at that. So obviously you're making, to me, a very obvious joke of why that would be vile to say. That's
Right.
the joke in and of
course,
itself. But then also, and now this perspective of mine is only a few years old.
Right.
Which is like, oh, but that's not to say that if you're black and you're listening to that you're not like, yeah, I get the joke. It's
Because
still
they may be aware of people who truly see
yes.
that it's better to
Exactly.
be white.
Yes, and they may go, oh, right, I get it. It's true, but it's not funny, and it's this or that. And also, probably, which is becoming more obvious to us all now, is even if that's a joke that should be made, not by you. Like,
Right.
that's now, I think, in my own experience, I'm starting to own the fact that I've made a lot of jokes that it wasn't. Although the joke, I would end up defending the logic of the joke and never really acknowledge, well, I'm not the person to say that
Well,
joke.
it's so funny because the whole thing about I remember hearing about like I mean, I'd have to ask Chris about this, but like Chris Rock, when he had his show on HBO, he hired a lot of racist Boston white guys because their racist jokes out of his mouth
Are great.
are fucking hilarious and have and work,
Yes.
in a totally different way. And he was brilliant enough to see that, and also not, he knew these guys. Comics are all one thing, ultimately.
Yes.
But it is kind of, I mean, I don't think they were actually racist, but just like that, to take those ideas of race and put it through his filter had a whole different meaning. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the last roast I did years ago, I remember I had to write jokes for a Aziz, and like I just said, like, fuck it. Like I didn't want to hurt his feelings. I don't know why, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's not, and so I remember just saying, like, I'm just gonna do racist Indian jokes, because then that's in a roast. I would rather have someone do I'm a cheap Jew joke, because it's so
Not
not
personal.
personal,
Yeah.
and it's just about writing shitty roasty jokes about that.
Yeah.
Then, like something that would ring true.
Yeah.
Like about my looks or personality or whatever. So, I mean, in a way I was like, that was me saying like I'm just gonna,
Well,
for right or for wrong. I mean, it's stupid, but
well, and I heard you mention something about the roast, that you noticed that where the roast is sexist is that the burns on you were all of a sudden all about aging,
it was
right?
so funny because I was the one backstage going, you guys, the jokes are, we're going to tell jokes about each other, but we love each other and it's nothing personal. And just like a lot of them had not done roasts before, whereas like Natasha and I had both done roasts, and of course like Jeff Ross and stuff.
Yeah.
And I, of course, was laughing, but like, and I think all of us, I think when you do a roast, you spend a couple days in bed afterwards trying to like remember your self-worth. But I was completely blindsided by I'm old jokes, because I wasn't even the oldest on the dais. I mean, and they were written by, I know the guys who wrote a lot of these jokes. They were like 60-year-olds. And I defend everyone's right to say them with my life, because I was fucking brutal. I mean, that's what a roast is. But the truth was, I did feel hurt. I mean, I defend it completely. I would, so it's hard to express myself without sounding like a victim because I was a part of it and I was brutal to people.
Yeah.
But I was just surprised. I was prepared for I'm hairy, I'm Jewish, I'm a whore.
You've
like
fucked
the
famous
classics.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wasn't prepared for that. And it was like a new world, a new chapter for me where I was like,
Right.
oh my God, I'm getting the B. Arthur jokes. I'm that old. You know, I'm 40 or however old I was.
Well, there's a bunch of weird ways that this job will force you to confront your age. And as an actor, the thing that starts happening to me is like, I realize, I'll notice, I'm getting cast as a husband now. Oh, I guess I'm old enough that I would be married. And then, I'm getting cast that I'd have children now. Oh, and now I'm starting to notice, the children I'm getting cast
Are
at,
going to
they're
college.
older. Yeah. And like the job forces you to acknowledge your actual station in life, weirdly.
Yeah.
And yet like that thing could, like, as you say, invite you into a new chapter. Like, oh God, I'm now here. That's something to think about. But you know, the thing with roasts is, like you, I think the people that want to do it, it's awesome.
Right.
It's not for me. I don't want to feel shitty about myself. I take a million steps in a day to not feel shitty. That the voice inside my head's doing a good enough job to make me feel shitty. I don't need help from anyone.
Yeah.
And then I also feel like there's this little element of like Roman Colosseum where it's like someone was smart enough to put us all together and then just sabotage each other for the collective amusement. It's like someone's above all of it. Like kind of just...
Also, the thing about a roast was always that it was a group of best friends.
Yes.
And it just is not that anymore. And, you know, my friend Brian Moses created a show called Roast Battle that is actually putting comedians who aren't necessarily famous at all, but who are working comics who are our friends.
Yes.
Or exes, or are dating, or are best friends, and it's totally different. And at the end of each one, they hug.
Yeah.
And you see when one slams the other one will like genuinely laugh. And the jokes are so specific, like your gay mom Ellen,
Right.
you know, who they know.
Yes.
And there's something much more beautiful about it. Like these are people that love each other, who share this craft
Yeah.
and are brutal to each other, but you really see that there is no love lost.
Yeah.
And it's different. It's kind of the
Well,
way
I love
it's
being made
supposed to
fun
be.
of by Kristen.
Yeah,
and
because it makes you feel known and it makes you feel loved. I mean, I love being teased by people I know love me.
Yes, and Monica teases me a lot, and I always enjoy that. And I tease her a lot, and she enjoys that a little bit less, but still enough.
Yeah, teasing is hard for me.
Well, because it is, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. Because the same thing, like what you were saying about the age joke, like you never know when something's going to feel personal. Like they very well could have thought like, oh, everyone ages. That's normal. That's
Right.
totally across the board. That's nothing personal.
I feel very confident that none of the men that made those jokes have any ill will towards me.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
No, but you just never know when something's going to do that.
Well,
Make you feel like, ugh.
Here's what would trigger me in a big way. If a stranger makes a joke about me, my assumption has to be everyone in the world thinks this about me. That's why it's funny.
Right.
This person doesn't even know me, but this thing is so obviously embarrassing about me that everyone's thinking it. And now I got to go home with this like handbag of new fears that everyone thinks about me. I don't want that new handbag of fears.
I like your
It's actually the strangeness of it that makes it feel so scary. Like, oh, that's what everyone's thinking. Because everyone laughs, so must have rang true. I guess I'm all these things.
Right. And I guess that's also why some people can get away with certain jokes and other people can't. It's because a truth transcends. And if it's that you're doing it with love, is very different than if you're doing it with fear or hatred or any kind of actual aggression or negative feeling, you know?
But it's also, and this kind of circles back to like never recognizing when you've entered a position of power or status over someone else, how it's kind of hard to be aware of that. For years, it took Kristen going, you have to understand when you're delivering your opinion, you're a 6'3" white dude. Like, it is just visually scarier. You need to counteract that by being even more soft than I'm
Big
being.
Doug.
Yes.
thing.
Like, I'm going, well, no, I'm speaking like everyone else. And she's like, yeah, but you're speaking above them like everyone else. So sorry for you. You're going to have to like come under that to make it equal. And I'm more and more recognizing like I am a fucking super entitled, tall, white guy with blonde hair. And me saying something mean isn't as pleasurable as watching George Carlin, who is schlubby and balding, say something attacking the power structure. You know,
Right.
like as much as I want to just be whatever comedian I want to be that day, I have a certain box that came with a ton of privilege and opportunities. And then there's some things I can't do. It's not my place.
That's why there are certainly people, and maybe they fall into that aesthetic that you're explaining, who are stunned by that because they are stunned by the notion of that they may hurt someone or have hurt someone because they don't feel powerful. And so, when even abuse, and this isn't me having compassion for that, but just wanting to understand it, when people are abusive, it's not because they feel powerful.
Right.
It's because they feel powerless.
Yeah.
And even if you are a person of power who abuse that power, a lot of times it's not because you feel powerful.
Yeah, it's the same with bullies. Like, as much as I want to hate bullies and round them up,
behind any
let me tell
bully
you,
is
they're
a
getting
bigger
their ass
bully.
kicked by dad at
Yes.
home. And so,
I can't expect people to have compassion for those people. But, I had a guy on my show, Christian Picciolini, who was a Nazi. He was a neo-Nazi. He
Read his
Oh.
book.
yeah, I read his
He's
book.
incredible. And he, from 14 and until he was like one of the heads of a Nazi
Yeah, that
movement.
Northern Hammers or something.
And he said, I said, what advice, if you're going to give us all advice? And he said, find someone who does not deserve your compassion and give it to them, because that's what happened to me. And I think about it all the time, because I think if I met Christian Picciolini before he changed,
Yeah.
would I have compassion for him? And, I'm not judging myself, yes or no, and I'm certainly not telling other people, have compassion for all these like scumbags, hate monger, whatever. But they got that way for a reason, and that reason is sad. They're grown-ups and they're responsible for what they do, but I do think that change comes more from compassion than from
Meeting it with equal violence and anger.
Yeah,
and-
that's why on Twitter you just have screaming matches and people just hating, and no one's going to change their mind. You're not going to change anyone's mind.
I totally agree.
By being condescending to them and telling them they're stupid and here's why and this fact and this poll number, and you might be totally right, but it makes their porcupine needles go up, and you can't be changed when you're in defensive mode, when you're protecting yourself.
Couldn't agree with you more. And these things they're either in one of two states. Things are either in a de-escalation state or an escalation state. That's just really the only two options. So it's like you have to imagine, am I escalating this thing or am I de-escalating it? And that Piccolini guy, is that how I say his last name? Picciolini. I felt it weirdly was like I had a moral conundrum about reading that book. I thought this guy has a great message ultimately, because I read the book, and then I was like, do I tweet about this book? And I thought, I feel very weird about giving someone some kind of capital or money based on having been a shithead. You know what I'm saying? I was like, there's something about this which is unique, because if the guy was just, let's say someone wrote a book about, I used to be a rapist and I raped all these people and now I'm not a rapist, it would feel weird to give that person a platform.
If he was called out before he changed, we would think of him very differently than how he came into the
relevance.
for having changed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. There's something to being changed on your own, not because the world has turned on you and you're losing work or something.
100%. And I ended up like loving the book and everything. But I just remember going like, I just feel I need to think this through weirdly.
Here's the things. I've done things that I'm very ashamed of, and in comedy even, just, that looking back, it was so ignorant, and whatever the intentions were. But I also know I can't, especially in this world, erase it.
Right.
All I can do is be changed by it and spend the rest of my life making it right in any way that I can. And I see that that's something I learned from Christian, like he spends his life trying to get people out of hate groups.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so, it's not a punishment, it's a choice that you want to make this right. This thing that you feel complicit in. And I think that I'm very moved by someone who can be changed.
Yeah.
I was raised a bleeding heart liberal, and now I am one.
Right,
I don't know
right.
that if I was raised differently, I would have the strength to become something else. I'd like to think that, but that's I said it in a specials, like that's how I see myself in people protesting outside an abortion clinic. This is how they've been raised. This is everything they know to be true.
Yeah.
And they want you to feel that way too, because they're passionate about it.
The thing, again, I'm more interested in trying to make Dax better than everyone else. And there's so many opportunities right now, and I'm kicking and screaming on some of them. Like I have provocative Me Too thoughts at times. I have provocative. I still think race is hysterical. I still love those jokes. There's a ton of stuff that I'm having a hard time. But I did have a little mild breakthrough. Monica and I were watching this documentary called White Right. Mm-hmm. And this English-born but Pakistani ethnically woman comes and interviews all these white nationalists. It's a great documentary. It's on Netflix. And what I found was it was so easy for me to see that many of them boys, young men that are in this movement have just never had a friend. These were like the first people that were willing to be friends with them.
Where the love is.
Yes. And
acceptance, a sense of family.
And they were even calling her a friend, like on such a short schedule. Like they had not known each other very long, but they would be going like, well, you're my friend. I don't want you to call yourself shitskin. That was like, she kept calling herself.
She'd read a tweet from them.
Yeah, that group.
And then she'd say it again, and they were like, don't say that.
Yeah, and
so quickly, yeah.
And the guy would be like, well, we're friends. And I could see in his eyes, like he genuinely like, and I was like, oh, he wants a friend so bad. And I just had this moment of kind of identity shattering where I was like, oh my God, this is the power of empathy. That guy looks like me. So I'm being empathetic in a way to him that I would never be watching an ISIS documentary.
Whoa.
Like if I was watching 10 ISIS dudes talk, my level of empathy is way lower. And that's just my reptilian brain has evolved to be empathetic towards people who I most relate to that look like me. And I start going like, oh man, I'm really handcuffed by my limited empathy, the way everyone's handcuffed by their limited empathy. And that needs to be something we are taught to countercorrect for, like in a fucking science experiment. Like we have a control variable. Oh, just be warned, you have limits to empathy.
Yeah, well, we base what we think on what we know, but we also base what we think on what we don't know. And what we don't know is terrifying. The thought of the unknown going into something that isn't familiar as humans is scary.
Yeah.
So what is brave is living through it and realizing now I didn't know and now I know.
Yeah.
I've lived through it and it was scary and I was okay.
Yeah. And even before Monica and I became really good friends, I would still have maintained like, no, accents are funny. You're allowed to do any accent you want. And knowing Monica, knowing what hearing people do that accent makes her feel like, I don't do it as much as I loved doing that accent.
So you do it sometimes in the shower when no one can hear you.
Yeah. And we found one single moment where we thought it was acceptable.
It's acceptable always.
No,
It's
but
just-
all that happened is I could still make the intellectual defense of it, but I've now had an emotional connection with the person where I go, however much pleasure I get out of doing that accent and however many people I make laugh, knowing how much it hurts a certain person, now that it's real to me, it's just been like, I don't need to do it.
If you, for instance, did an Indian accent because you have a bunch of Indian friends,
Yeah, yeah.
it's different than if you do an Indian accent because of the guy with it on The Simpsons.
Abu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
you've heard that, and then that's what, in 7-Eleven, people at 7-Eleven are Indian and they talk like this.
Yeah.
It's very different than, like if your three best friends are Indian and you,
well,
are
Can I just-
reflecting them,
I think I just remembered the one time I thought it was worth doing was my brother worked at a place for a while where he answered a customer care line. And people are so angry at the notion that they're talking to someone in India on customer care. There's a thing
Right.
like, where are you? People. So my brother, to fuck with those people who are basically xenophobic, they would go, where are you right now? And my brother would say, New York, New York. And he would do an Indian accent and keep claiming to be in America just to piss them off, which I thought was weirdly full circle funny. But at any rate, it took me.
it is full circle funny, but they're not.
They're not getting.
Their racism is
But he's turning their own racism on them to punish them, to make them suffer.
but
they don't get off the
won't.
phone, being more open to.
No, certainly not.
Yeah.
No, it certainly probably made them more xenophobic and racist.
But it is.
But it's kind of a good bit just to fuck with them. At any rate,
You're the best storyteller.
you think so?
I've always said you've told the funniest stories I've ever heard.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, thank you. I remember when I started doing stand-up and I did it in front of you, I was particularly nervous. I'm like, God, I really hope Sarah doesn't think, like, why is he fucking doing this?
Oh my God, I would never. You have a great way of telling a story. Oh my God.
Oh, thank you.
I'll never forget the one about Marlon Brando being taken on a tour of the set of Dr. Moreau.
Isle of Dr. Moreau.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, look at this one. Oh, he's a monster. Look at.
He looks like a lion.
Oh, he's a lion.
And it was a real actor, not in prosthetics or makeup.
Oh boy.
And they had worked together before, and he kept trying to say it. And then Marlon was like,
Oh my God, he talks. Oh, look at this.
and he was touching his face and stuff.
It's so real.
Well, Sarah, I love you. And do you think, so you're doing your show, I Love You, America.
Well, here's my big announcement. We
Okay.
got canceled.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We haven't I haven't said it out loud yet.
Okay.
Other than to the people I work with who now need to find work.
I'm so sorry. Did you enjoy doing it a lot?
There's nothing I've ever enjoyed more. This is the first job in my life that I would wake up every morning before my alarm. Is a group I loved working with. It felt like it mattered. It mattered to me, and we own it. So maybe someone will find a home somewhere. But I'm actually super bummed about it. I've always been slightly relieved when other jobs get canceled and stuff. There's always a part of me, but this one I'm super bummed about.
Oh, I'm sorry. What I was going to say is what I liked about that show is I do feel like you and I, although you're, I think, much more political than I am, you're involved, but I do see in you something that I think we share, which is it's really easy to get so cemented into this identity of left and right. And it appears to me that you're always trying to remember at all times that they're a human way before they're a conservative or a liberal. And you seem to have the same desire I do, which is, let's talk. My goodness. Let's just chat for a minute. And
Face to face, everything's different.
It is. And then just being reminded that 98% of your day is identical to everyone else's. Like you wake up, you got to get some coffee. You're going to have to take a shit. You might have to get kids ready. You got to go drive to fucking some job. You got to sit in traffic. Like you look at the actual things that are happening in every person's day, and we're so similar, and yet we make a mountain out of these
That's why it's like,
associations.
you make so much more leeway with someone who has complete different politics than you. There's no reason to talk about politics. Talk about what you do. You know, like, oh my God, you watch Walking Dead? Me too. I used to hate Carol. Now she's my world, you know?
Yeah.
And like, it's like that. All you have to do is connect on some level, and then you're friends. And then
Yes.
all the other stuff, you know, there's someone who says this woman, Mary Kay. I fucking never remember her name. It starts with a K. But she
The
said-
makeup sales lady,
no,
Mary
not
Kay.
that. She says, and I know it because Mr. Rogers quoted her, but she said, there isn't anyone you couldn't love once you've heard their story.
Yeah, I love that.
You know, but we did a whole episode where it's just like, we may be totally different, but everybody loves their family, loves their friends, and has a embarrassing story involving shitting.
Yeah, yes. Well, the one that I always kind of hold up, because I'll get going on like, well, let's all just first start with maybe the way we connect, and then we can have different opinions. And people will go, no, it's you got to choose a side, and I get mean tweets about that I'm not taking a side as much. But I will just put up before you, Anthony Scalia and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Those two were best friends.
Bros.
They went on vacations together. They fucking went in a hot air balloon together. Like, and you can't say either one of them wasn't the most devout warrior and soldier for their parties in their political ideology, and they're best friends. If those two people can be best friends, we don't have to be hating one another because we have different opinions.
I see there's two versions of that. I see the beauty of it, and that the reason why there's so much separation and bullshit in our own government is that they don't hang out anymore. There used to be a time where the Democrats and the Republicans would go to parties, they'd have dinner, they'd play golf, they'd talk about their children, and it was so different.
Yeah.
They got shit done because of it.
Yeah.
Now they don't do that. I see two sides to it, because then also I went to a party and I saw Anthony Scaramucci and
the Mooch?
Avenatti hanging out together.
Who's Avenatti?
The what's her face's lawyer, Stormy Daniels' lawyer.
Right. The guy with the
Totally
shaved
opposite
head.
sides of right.
Yeah.
I go, you guys are friends? And they're like, yeah, Italians stick together, whatever. And I thought, oh, Jesus, this is fucking show business to them. They're pitching a show together.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
there's like, in some ways you go, we need them to hang out. We need them to see themselves in each other, because that's what we need. And they represent us, and it trickles down. And then on another side, you go like, it's fucking show business to them. They don't even fucking care. So I'm of like two minds. It all just depends.
Well, but I do agree. I was listening to this guy on Sam Harris's podcast, and he was making this great point that we've actually transitioned, though, both parties have transitioned into they are nominating the person they don't hate as opposed to nominating the person they love. And that's an infection on both sides. So to be a liberal at this point is to be defined by hating Trump. And I don't think that's the way to define yourself. I think the way to define yourself is by who you love
What
and whose
do you
policy.
stand for?
Yes. What is the policy you love and you're fighting for? Not all your energies into the policy you hate and the person who represents that. It just doesn't, to me, seem ultra productive.
Yes, I would say that Trump is living rent free in my mind.
Right.
Like to fight that.
Yeah. Well, I really adore you, and the times we've got to hang out. We've played Scrabble together,
Yes.
and you're quite a good Scrabble player, which I always respect in someone. I imagine that. Well, let me just ask you this really quick. SNL probably was the most devastating thing that had happened to you at that point, from what I've read.
I mean, besides like having to go to sleepaway camp as a bedwetter, I guess.
Right.
Most devastating.
But then in
I
retro,
was hung out a window by my ankles as a 13-year-old.
oh, you were?
17-story window. That was scary.
Oh my goodness! By
so I
several
would
people.
say that by one guy on acid.
Oh wow! Yikes!
Yeah, I was visiting my sister at college.
And he was hazing you.
He wouldn't pull me in. I was teeny tiny. I was 13, but very small. And I went to visit him while my sister was in class, and he must have been on drugs.
Sure.
And he held me out a 17-story window. And I remember thinking, this is how I'll die.
Oh.
And he wouldn't pull me back in until I screamed enough for him, you know. I was already screaming.
Ay. We're the worst.
That's no fun at all.
No.
And in
But-
closing.
but
so
no.
I can't say that was the most devastating thing in my. But yeah, it
But
was
per-
certainly professionally.
Professionally.
I remember thinking, like, am I in show business?
Right.
I was definitely in show business being on it.
But Odenkirk kind of publicly gave his 2 cents on why he thought that happened, which I think is really quite accurate, which is the thing that made you not great there is the very thing that makes you great everywhere, which is you are so specifically Sarah Silverman at all times, and that point of view is a commodity and has proven to be the commodity that it is. And it's almost a huge blessing that happened. I'm just thinking,
Yes.
in retrospect, these things that have been in my own life so hurtful, took so long to get over, were the best things that ever happened to me.
Definitely.
And do you feel like as you get older, I feel like I now have enough evidence that I never know what is the best thing for me. And I now realize, or I have a faith that I'll always look back on things and go, oh, that was supposed to happen exactly that way because now I'm here and I love being here.
Yeah.
Do you
I
have
mean,
that kind of comfort or?
I have learned in therapy to try to feel like what has happened and what is happening is for some reason essential. Maybe I don't understand it now. But that's kind of like what the great part of religion is for people is like, well, this was meant to happen and this is supposed to happen. And that seems real nice, you know, like I Love You America getting canceled. Like I still don't feel like that was meant to be. But then part of me is like, I guess it was. Maybe it's supposed to be somewhere else. Maybe it's supposed to not be anymore. But
Right. But I just hope you have the perspective. You probably don't because you're inside of it. But I, on the outside, go, oh, Sarah Silverman will always be fine. You'll always be 100% fine. You'll do 19 different things before now in the end. And they'll all have some significance and some things will lead you to this and that. And
I do feel that way. I've just never really panicked and I've never planned anything or it's been like I want to be here at a certain point. It's never occurred to me. Nothing that's one thing my therapist said too. Like, have you been able to predict a single thing that's happened in your life? And I was like, definitely not. And he goes, yeah. So why are you worrying about it now? We're looking through a pinhole of just what we know.
yes.
You know?
I put you in a category with Amy Poehler, which is a lot of people, myself included, at times you get so navel focused that as you're going up the ladder, you're forgetting to throw your hand back and help people out.
Yeah.
And you've always been just the high watermark of, you and I are both best friends with Steve Agee. We love Steve Agee. And you have a group of people that if you're working, they're working. And I think that's the most admirable, wonderful thing that is easy to overlook as you're focused on what's next and the things you need personally.
Right.
To constantly be remembering, no, let's bring everyone I can along for the ride. I feel like you've done that really admirably.
Thanks. Well, you know, friends are.
They don't grow on trees.
No, they don't.
You find a few good ones. You got to keep them around.
I mean, I think a lot of my friends have outgrown me career-wise, and that's a good thing. That's maybe not for me, but I'm thrilled for that. I love it.
All right. Well, I love you. Thank you so much for
Love you
coming and
too.
making time. And
Can I sleep over?
yes,
I think-
only if you promise to pee the bed.
I promise.
Because I want to be your first positive experience with it. Like when you yell from your bedroom, I peed the bed. I'm going to come in with cymbals celebrating, and I'm going to have confetti poppers,
Oh my gosh.
and then I'm going to give you $500 cash.
Oh my
wow.
God.
And then
Nice.
Kristen's going to throw a cake in my face for your amusement to celebrate. And we're going to put a whole new spin on this for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that will have a positive outcome.
Oh, there's only one way for us to find out. And now my favorite part of the show, the fact check with my soulmate, Monica Padman. Oh boy, let's start out this fact check by just saying that when we flew back from Chicago, we were on the airplane with Common.
Mm-hmm. We were.
We were. He was a couple rows ahead of us.
Yeah.
And when we got off the plane in L.A., Common took the time to remove 2 or 3 bags from the overhead for this woman who was sitting next to him. And Rob said, you don't see that often. That's very uncommon.
Yeah, and you loved it.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought it was a
good joke.
because it happened immediately while it was happening. You know, that was the kind of thing I would think of maybe walking down the run. You know, the little fucking doohickey you walk down the gangway.
Sure.
Might have thought, oh, I wish I would have said that's uncommon to see. But he was right. It was right on the heels.
Yeah.
Might have even still been happening.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was reminded of it because Rob just got me with a joke coming into this.
Yeah.
Welcome to the fact check.
Yeah. Sarah.
Sarah.
Sarah Silverman. She's special.
And when you feel you can't go on, you come and squeeze me. It's you. What did Sarah say? She didn't shit the Brooklinens?
No, she did great. Paul Bloom. You said Paul Bloom said empathy is not useful. I don't know if he said that so explicitly, but he does say he has like a case sort of against empathy and for rational compassion, which he says are different.
I might have paraphrased a bit too much.
You may have.
Yeah.
You may have. You may not. He might say.
Well,
sure.
he just said it's not helpful to be truly empathetic by the definition of empathy in a situation which calls for you to act, because you're gonna imagine yourself in their shoes and you're gonna get yourself hysterical or irrational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that there's a difference between empathy and compassion for people, because a lot of sociopaths have a lot of empathy.
They score very high on these empathy tests.
Yes, and that's how they're able to manipulate people.
They
they know what the other person
wants to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's counterintuitive to think that sociopaths are highly empathetic.
I know.
Yeah, it really puts that word to the test.
It
just kind of used as a blanket positive.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and it's not necessarily. You said drowning.
Okay.
And Sarah called you out, but I just wanted to say that was a new word.
Further call me
Well,
out.
it was just a new word I didn't know that you said a little.
I hope Wobby Wob is compiling a list we can put on the website. We need a new thing for him to start jotting down.
Okay.
Because Wobby Wob is supposed to. He's okay at this. Now, I just gave him a lot of love for his uncommon joke, but I'm going to be a little critical and say he's pretty good at writing down every time we say a podcast or a documentary or a book that we like. Mm-hmm. He's supposed to be writing that down vigilantly,
Okay.
meticulously, and then posting it on the website so people can go afterwards.
Right.
They don't have to swerve into another lane trying to rewind.
Oh, yeah, don't do that.
Don't
guys.
do that. Well, Wobby Wob, write this stuff down.
White.
But I do think that we should add to Wobby Wob's list maybe these words.
Okay, well, let's go over them.
Like
Vietnamese.
a glossary.
Attic.
Addict. Up in the attic.
Yes.
Across.
Yes.
Yeah.
Vietnamese, attic, across.
Roof. But that's not. Yeah, I'm not saying it wrong.
You're
It's
not
just
saying it wrong.
I'm just saying it wrong.
You're saying it weird.
Sauna, it turns out I say correctly.
Yeah, we can't add that to the list.
We can't.
No.
That's going to be on the list of all the words you fucking people say wrong.
Yeah, that's the only,
Sauna.
that list of one.
How embarrassing. No, all the listeners, they're saying sauna.
But the list is one word.
Yeah,
long.
that I got right. Sauna.
Drowning.
And there's 2 other words I say correctly that no one says correctly.
What?
Orangutan and Neanderthal. Those are both. That's both the correct ways to say those
This
words.
reminds me of when you said we in biology.
I
believe.
did not ever say we in biology. We in the sciences.
Ugh.
I never said that.
You know, Neanderthal and orangutan are words I'll never.
You'll choose to say them incorrectly.
Correct.
Yeah. I have words like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know what the right way to say it is, but I think it's gross.
Me too. And I feel that way about saying certain areas of the country, like Missouri is often pronounced a certain way.
Missouri.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't do that either.
Okay.
Even though I know that's actually the
Gillian Flynn.
I know. She's allowed to. She's
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah, Missouri.
I think if you're from there, you earn the right.
Yeah.
Even if I was from there, I probably wouldn't.
In Georgia, did you guys say Oregon or Oregon?
Oregon.
Oregon.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? In Michigan, every single person in Michigan says Oregon. The Oregon Trail.
Really?
Not the Oregon Trail, the Oregon Trail.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't until my family moved to Oregon that I was forced to learn to say it correctly.
So is Oregon right?
Yeah, because that's how Oregonians say it.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And they get to decide.
But they're called Oregonians or
Oregonians.
Organisms?
They're called organisms.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I told you about my Nokia thing, right?
Nokia.
Yeah, I used to say Nokia, right?
No, I think it's Nokia.
Oh, Jesus,
it?
now I'm lost. But I once was hired 15 years ago to go to the Sugar Bowl and like be a part of some paid thing from Nokia or Nokia. And I had to say it a bunch of times. And I spent hours in my hotel room saying it. Yes, because whatever it was the opposite of what I've always said. And I didn't want to be like the mouthpiece for this company, which is also Swedish.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so I had to, I practiced more than I've practiced monologues for movies, saying Nokia.
Wow.
Yeah.
Or Nokia.
Or Nokia, but I think it's Nokia.
I say Nokia.
Doesn't that sound Japanese?
Yeah, I would have totally said Japanese.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
Maybe the Swedes bought it from the, I don't know. I don't want to get too in the weeds on it, but.
So you said Imperial Dragons is a KKK name. And I started looking into some KKK titles, yes. Positions, correct. And so I'm going to go through some, okay?
Right.
These are higher level titles.
Okay.
If Grand Wizard.
I feel like that's the most known.
Yeah, that's the highest, I guess.
It is. Well, I feel like an Imperial Dragon should be higher than a Grand Wizard.
No.
Just because it's got the name dragon in it.
Yeah, Imperial Dragons are less.
Oh.
Yeah.
Counterintuitive. Wizards are higher than dragons. I just have to say how silly the whole thing sounds.
That's
it literally
what I'm
sounds like
saying.
10-year-olds playing Dungeons and Dragons.
It does, or Harry Potter or something. Like, it does. Grand Wizard, Grand Scribe, Grand Dragon, Great Titan.
Great Grandpa.
Grand Giant.
Is it really Grand Giant? This is so silly.
And there's goblins.
Are there real? No, there's not.
Yes.
Oh my God. You guys in the KKK, you've got to redo your title
this is making me a little nervous. I don't know why.
Why? We're making fun of the KKK.
No, I mean, are they going to come get me or something?
Well, let me just say this. This is going to get me in way more trouble than what you're dancing around. Is we've now watched several documentaries about the KKK, you and I. Now, when I watch documentaries about the Hells Angels, you do not want to fuck with them.
Yeah.
And the toughest person in any Hells Angels chapter is called the Sergeant of Arms. That they give that title to the toughest guy.
Okay.
I've seen a dozen or so Hells Angels Sergeant Arms. I am terrified.
Yeah.
I would not want to say a single disparaging thing about them because there's. But I have now watched all these KKK. All look like out of shape, fucking heavy smoker, carb pounding. Every single one of them.
I know. But
We watched them together.
I know.
Have you seen one guy that you were like, oh, that's a tough customer? You're like, no, that guy looks like he would fucking die in a lawn chair just by hanging.
But listen, I don't, my fear is not.
Antagonizing a hate group?
Well, yes. But I'm saying my fear is not relegated to people who look tough. I know that the people who look weak can do a lot of damage.
I kind of like, though, challenging any member of
No,
the clan to a fist fight. I don't want to get in a gun duel with anyone.
They'd love to get in a fight with me.
Well, but you have not challenged them to a fight. I am the one that's saying
they
they all
already
look like
want
out of
to.
shape.
They already
Weaklings.
hate me, so.
Although they don't. That's the sad thing we're learning about the Klan is that they would be friends with you in 2 seconds. That's what's so complex about all this. Is they would be friends with you. They were friends with that woman.
I know.
It's all so weird.
It is.
Anywho, though, I do stand by the my assessment of their general fitness. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Speaking of, I watched Black Klansman over the break because it was on Obama's list of top movies.
It was?
For the year. And so I watched it with my family, and we liked it very much.
Great.
Oh, okay. She said that she lost her virginity when she was 19. Mm-hmm. And you said that seemed late. Mm-hmm. And I just want to be careful about that.
Okay.
Because I
Tell me
don't
why.
want. Well, I don't want people to listen, young people, and who maybe haven't had sex and think,
Something's wrong with them.
no, something's wrong. I should have by now, or that it's late if you get to a certain point. Like, anything's fine.
Yeah. Well, there's two elements that I'll say that compound that. One is just my experience. So anything I'm saying, of course, relates to how it was in my town, basically. And people generally had sex by the time they were 18. And so that's one issue, and that's probably regional. I'm sure there's different ages of sexual activity that are common in different areas. It just seemed to be pretty young where I'm from. But second to this, and this kind of circles back to a problem I think I haven't figured out how to address yet, which is because her comedic material has been often very sexual, I think of her as someone who's very sexual or very uninhibited, doesn't think there's a bunch of moral trappings surrounding the pleasurable activity of coitus. So I'm making these assumptions based largely on her comedy, which probably is not smart. So just based on her comedy, I think, I would have thought she got sexually curious at 16.
Early. I see.
Yeah, so it was not like it wasn't a blanket statement to all people like that 19's late, but for her, I felt shocked by it because she's so open about being sexual.
Yeah. I figured that. I just wanted to clarify for our listeners
that they should wait as long as they want.
No, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah,
and that
totally.
it's all fine and that it's all fine.
And also fuck when you're ready because it's fun. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's also that.
Okay. Is bedwetting hereditary? The majority of bedwetting is inherited. For 3 out of 4 kids, either a parent or a first-degree relative also wet the bed in childhood. And some scientists have even located some of the specific genes that led to delayed nighttime bladder control.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I thought that was cool. She said her dad did.
That should be on the 23andMe kit, whether you're a bedwetter.
Wow, they should add that.
Prone to
Yeah.
bedwetting.
Yeah. Yeah.
We could also, we could really do some synergy right now.
Okay.
If we could get 23andMe to add it to their kit, and
know
they
what you're
get
gonna say.
Brooke Linen to do a pee-resistant 5-star quality sheet
And
and advertise to those people who were...
but also and MeUndies.
Oh, and MeUndies could have a little maxi pad built in.
built-in diaper.
Yeah, like a reusable maxi pad.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I suppose a lot of our sponsors could hop on this. Pacifica could get, like, you have a seat cover. You could order your Pacifica with a little pee-resistant seat cover.
Right. If you're night driving.
If you're driving in your sleep.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We need to call a meeting of all sponsors and
do.
hit them with our new multi-prong approach.
Yeah.
This community of bedwetters.
We talk a little bit about OCD and control. And there's a book called Overcoming Obsessive Thoughts. And it says anxiety and worry is a prominent feature of OCD, and the compulsions are behavioral attempts to manage or control the anxiety and distressing thoughts. And you mentioned something about asthma potentially being psychosomatic in a way to control their environment, and I didn't find anything on that, but it must be somewhere maybe.
Well, and what's so weird is I think, I don't know if I said it in the interview, but I'm getting that all from, there was an entire chapter in the Teddy Roosevelt biography
you didn't say that.
dedicated to the conclusion that asthma was psychosomatic. So I read like a whole chapter. Now, mind you, this book, the Teddy Roosevelt book, I'm pretty sure it was a McCullough book. Well, it was written 30 years ago, so maybe it's even changed since then. But the way it was written seemed like it was completely conclusive that it was psychomatic, which I had asthma as a kid.
Yeah.
And again, you don't know you're doing it,
Right, right.
But it kind of made sense to me. Like one of the gals in this chapter that was talking about asthma was Roses gave her an asthma attack, and they brought roses into her hospital room and she had an asthma attack, but the roses were fake.
Oh, wow.
They were silk roses. That was one of the examples they gave.
I didn't get chills, but I feel like I could have gotten chills just then.
I could have. What's a
You said
pre-chill
that.
state that you got into?
I just felt like, oh, wow, big reveal.
Well, yeah, it kind of felt like the moment in the courtroom where they like show a video of the person, right?
Yeah, or in The Sixth Sense when you find out that
He's died.
he's actually dead. Okay, she said that she's pretty tall, and she is. She's 5'7". That's pretty tall for a lady, I think.
Yeah.
Christian Picciolini was the head of which Nazi group? You said Northern Hammers, and it was first he was recruited to join Chicago area skinheads, Cash, and he became the group's leader at age 16. And then he facilitated a merger between Cash and the Hammerskins. Which
The
is what you were talking about.
Hammerskins.
So then it was both together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. What a
We're
story.
giving race groups a lot of airtime today.
We are.
Yeah.
He talked a
Not
lot.
race groups, racist groups.
Anti-race groups, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although white is a race. I mean, there's no such thing as race, but if you concede to the concept of race.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Caucasoid, honky, cracker, whitey, the man.
The man.
Well, that's what black folks in the 70s called whitey, was the man.
I thought they called it, I thought that was like, yeah, I guess it is white. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honky, cracker, ass, cracker.
Who said there isn't anyone you couldn't love once you've heard their story? Her name's Mary Lou.
Retton.
No, I love Mary Lou Retton.
Of course you do.
Mary Lou Kownacki? Kownacki.
A lot of consonants in that one.
Lots. Made popular by Mr. Rogers, of course.
Oh. Well, that's a stamp of approval.
Yeah. Another race thing. We were kind of talking about like being attracted to your oppressor.
Oh, uh-huh.
And you said something that we blew over, but I knew what you were trying to say.
Okay.
You said that girls in West Bloomfield liked you.
Jewish gals.
Jewish girls in West Bloomfield liked you, and maybe it was because you looked really Aryan. And I think you were trying to say like there was some sort of like pathology about you and like Hitler and Nazis, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. that's
Yeah.
what
Can I say that?
I don't know.
I mean, I said it.
Well,
so.
you didn't say it.
Oh, I didn't
It
say
got like you kind of were trying to, and you were about to.
And getting scareder and scareder.
I could tell you were
Mm-hmm.
wanting to, but then you didn't because she kind of took it a little bit of a different way, and then you were trying to sort of circle back, and then you let it go. But I know I knew that you meant that.
Yeah, I just had wondered, I guess, and this probably stems from my own insecurities more than anything else, because I couldn't comprehend that they just liked me, right? That there's no way that they just liked me.
Yeah.
But again, it was disproportionate. It was disproportionate.
Well,
More of them liked me than honky cracker, devil ass.
what
Blondie
Sarah said,
whiteys.
I think, and what I do think is true is I think
It's just a forbidden, it's an exotic thing.
exotic. Yeah.
Yeah, exotic.
Exotic.
Also, really weird to think of myself as exotic.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, like if milk needed to be personified, it could just be me. You know?
No, I wouldn't
Glass
say
of
that.
milk.
I would not say that.
Okay. All right. Bad analogy. Strike one.
No, because you're not,
Bland.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this
Yeah, a
gets into a
little
whole
spice.
thing about the soul spectrum that Joy and I created.
Oh.
Yeah, and it transcends skin color.
Oh.
Yeah, and a very self-serving
Obviously.
spectral analysis I came up with because, of course, I want to put myself high on the soul spectrum.
Sure.
But we did conclude that Bill Murray was like a 10 on the soul spectrum. Like
Okay.
Samuel Jackson and Bill Murray are tied on the soul spectrum, even though one's white and one's
And I
black.
need a little more info. Like,
It's very nebulous. Like for some reason, she and I agree on every name. Like any name we would come up with, like Tom Cruise. She and I would put him at like a 1 on the soul spectrum, right?
is it 1 to 10?
Yeah, 1 to 10.
Okay.
And then like Bill Murray, we were both like fucking 10. Sam Jackson, 10. Jimi Hendrix, 10.
Bill Murray, 10.
Oh, Bill Murray is a 10 on the soul spectrum.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, where am I? Where were you first? Where were you?
I'm on like an 8 on the soul spectrum.
Okay. Enjoy approved.
She did. She signed off on that.
Okay.
She thinks I'm high on the soul spectrum. And she's like a 9 on the soul spectrum.
Okay. Okay.
Do you accept that?
Yeah, I would say she would probably be a 10.
Well, she's not a 10 because we got to reserve 10 for like Sam Jackson and Bill Murray.
Okay.
So like, let me think of a female that is.
I'm having a hard time.
Well, Aretha Franklin's a 10 on the soul spectrum.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
And
I
you're
got to think of
an
a
8?
white woman that is, maybe I'm not an 8, but I don't know. She and I felt like I was an 8. And maybe I'm misremembering. We should probably fact check from her what I was. But I was high
Okay.
for a white, for a Caucasoid.
Is it like,
It's like rhythm, you know?
oh,
Yeah, there's like a rhythm and a looseness and a comfort in your own skin and a.
oh,
Does that start making sense a little bit?
A little bit.
Like when you look at Bill Murray, you're just like, God, that guy is just like, he's liquid in his own skin. He's just
that's
smooth and confident in like his own thing and
yeah.
deep and, you know. Yeah, there's a looseness to the originality that is very soulful.
So did you guys do it for the people on set? Did you give
Yes,
numbers?
yes, absolutely.
Okay,
of course.
so what-
no.
Wait,
No.
why?
I can't
People don't
possibly
like
give
it.
people's.
Is it negative?
Well, I think
if you're
probably-
not.
I don't know. I would imagine people would want to be high on the soul spectrum.
What am I? You can do that. You can do it on here and don't lie. And we can ask Joy what she thinks.
Yeah, we can ask Joy.
She doesn't know me as well as you do, but
Right. I would probably give you a 5 on the soul spectrum. Are you upset?
right.
Are you
You're right.
upset?
It's negative. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels negative.
Yeah.
But like,
Oh,
let me tell you something. This is by your own admission. You were an assimilator. You were a cheerleader. Like being a snowboarder puts you high on the soul spectrum because it's like you're bucking the convention. You're finding your own wave to ride. It's not completely popular or normal. It's almost paralleling, now that I think about it, my definition of the punk rock spectrum.
people who are doing that are doing the exact same thing that people who are on the cheerleading squad are doing. They're finding the group that makes them feel good
Sure.
and is giving them approval. One is
I knew this
not-
was gonna
One
backfire.
is not different than the other. I'm sorry. It's just not.
You,
I know you want it to be, but it's not.
well, let me ask you this. There's some things I don't know about you, which is interesting because I've known you for a while now. But I don't know if you dance when there's music played. Like, you know me. I can't not dance when music's played, right? At the house, second music comes on, I am dancing. And I don't know that about you. That would inch you up or down on the soul spectrum.
Yeah.
What did you want to be on the soul spectrum?
I don't know. I just
Don't like the number
but-
I gave you.
No, I don't. I don't. And I don't think you know me. That's the case.
How often do you dance?
Around you, never.
Why not?
Maybe you make me self-conscious.
I make you self-conscious.
No, you don't. Maybe I feel self-conscious.
Well, like Bill Murray would dance around. If Bill Murray was in the mood to dance, he would dance. Right?
Sure.
And so would Sam Jackson.
That's true.
Tom Cruise would not.
He might. I mean, he probably does.
I don't even know this about Tom Cruise.
I
Did you
know,
hear how
that's what I'm
definitive I
saying.
was?
I
I'm probably going to
know.
get sued by Tom Cruise. Yeah, I don't know whether Tom Cruise would dance or not. I don't feel like he would.
Well,
By the way,
I
Tom
kinda
Cruise-
feel like he would.
By the way-
actually,
The soul spectrum's not the only spectrum to be on. Tom Cruise, what a guy. This son of a bitch is such a good actor. The movies he's in, they're so hard to be good in. Almost all the lines are cheesy exposition.
Yeah.
They're like a threat to somebody. They're him expressing his anger. They're very hard. I watch those movies. What are those movies called, Monica?
action movies.
No, the series, Mission Impossible.
Oh.
And I love it. He runs This man runs at one point in the most recent movie for upwards of 6 minutes straight, just sprinting. He sprints in every movie, but he sprints in the most recent Mission Impossible for, I swear, 6 minutes straight.
Wow.
Almost no actor in the world could you film running for 6 minutes and still be interested after 1 minute. If you watched me run for a minute, you'd want to fast forward. So there's something that Tom Cruise has that I don't have. And he has some spectrum that he's a 10 on,
The running spectrum.
that I'm a 1 on. So it's okay, that he isn't pegging that specific spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay. That's true.
All right.
Okay. That's all.
That was all the facts?
Yeah.
We can't end on this note. You're very upset about the 5.
Well, I'm not upset.
You're pretty upset.
No, I'm not.
Okay, now back to when I'm not around. You do some dancing?
Yeah.
You do. How much dancing?
I don't know. What
Do you dance when you're in your car?
No.
You don't.
I sing when I'm in my car.
You sing when you're in your car.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're high on the singing spectrum. You're high on the singing spectrum, but maybe not so high on...
No, I'm not high on a singing spectrum because I won't sing in front of you.
Although I have heard you sing in the back seat.
Right.
And it's always
With
great.
music.
In fact, when I hear you sing, my first instinct is to be happy because I want to hear you sing. But then it transitions immediately into anger because here you have this great voice and I could be hearing it all the time and you're denying all of us it. And it's selfish and it's
Sorry.
greedy and it's crude
Wow.
and rude.
Well, I guess I'm also I'm
You're
a 10 on the selfish spectrum.
On the rude spectrum.
I guess so. I guess so. I mean, yeah. Well, I guess there's one more thing
Monkeys.
I could say. So our friend who was talking about wanting to date someone funny, and you were saying that's about ego.
Well, hold on. I didn't say, is it about ego? I said, just be certain
Okay.
that it's not about ego.
Okay.
Like, it's one thing if, you want to be surrounded by someone funny, that's fine.
Okay.
But if in fact you really just want to be around someone funny so that you have the approval of someone you admire, then maybe that's not a great motivation.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I just want to be clear, like, it doesn't always mean it's your ego.
No.
Like, it can be that funny people are fun to be around.
just pure enjoyment.
Yes.
100%. I don't know. I think it's just interesting to analyze why you're attracted to someone. To decide if it is just genuine enjoyment or if it is ego fulfillment.
Right. It could be both.
Because look, it's the same thing happens for attractiveness. Like, well, sure, you want to be with someone attractive because you want to be attracted to them.
Yep.
But yet there's a whole other layer of it is that you want to be with someone attractive so
course.
people think you're
Attractive.
a catch.
Yep.
So it's just important to know whether you're attracted to them or whether you're attracted to the notion that you're with someone attractive.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Because you can be super hot for somebody who's not conventionally gorgeous, like isn't going to be on the cover of a magazine for their beauty. And some people would keep them from dating that person because their ego wants to be with someone that should be on a magazine cover, even if they think that person's sexy as hell.
Yeah.
I think that happens
Yeah. Yeah. I think it happens too.
every day,
Every minute.
even to these grand goblins.
Oh, man. Yeah. I don't know if the goblins are grand.
Oh, they're not.
They might just be regular
Junior goblins and
Small goblins.
associate goblins.
Ugh.
All right. I love you.
I love you too.